Chapter 848. Wuxia entered Wuxia without causing any stir within, while Nzizai and Hai Yuan only paid attention to him secretly. Sir, the novel fire. Net website on Google to access chapters of novels early and in the highest quality. 100 years later, Nzizai summoned Wuxia. Having grown up, Wuxia was elegant and handsome, and like most Wuxia disciples, had the demeanor of the immortal family. He still wore black clothes, but his outfit had become more refined, with a cyan jade hairpin on his hair crown, exuding extraordinary poise. Nzizai met him on a cliff. Wuxia came up behind Nzizai and bowed to salute. Wuxia greets ancestor. Wuxia's tone was neither humble nor arrogant. Upon careful listening, one could hear a hint of flair in his voice. Since joining Wuxia, he had been cultivating and hadn't met Nzizai again, but he couldn't forget the embarrassment when he first met Nzizai. On the way here, he wondered why ancestor had summoned him. He couldn't understand but wasn't worried, because he was already a Wuxia disciple. His master and his master's master both regarded him highly. Even if the third-generation senior disciple wanted to trouble him, they would need a reason. Nzizai, with his back to Wuxia, gazed at the distant mountains and forests and spoke. Your talent is outstanding, and your comprehension is rare for a millennium. I will make an exception to teach you divine skills. What kind of divine skill do you want to learn? Upon hearing this, Wuxia's eyes lit up, and he immediately said, I want to learn the Myriad Supreme Palm. The Myriad Supreme Palm, which overwhelmed the Outer Heaven Emperor and gained fame throughout the land, was something Wuxia heard his family talk about in his youth. If he could join Wuxia, he must learn the Myriad Supreme Palm. The Myriad Supreme Palm can only be practiced by the Wuxia senior disciple. The so-called senior disciple is not every generation's senior disciple, but the one who wields great power among them. As Nzizai spoke, he turned to look at Wuxia. He examined Wuxia and asked, Do you think you can become the senior disciple? I will try hard. Since I am cultivating immortality, I have great ambitions. I don't want to live a lifetime of quiet cultivation. When Wuxia said this, his eyes were bright and fearless as he met Nzizai's gaze, full of vigor, like a sharp sword drawn from its sheath. Nzizai had to admit that he liked Wuxia's sharpness because it was something other disciples did not possess, only seen in the world's #1 prodigy. But the thought of Wuxia using Wuxi's divine skills to cause chaos in the human world gave him some discomfort. Ancestor, I temporarily lack the qualifications to practice the Myriad Supreme Palm. Why don't you decide? Whatever you teach, I will learn. I'm not picky. I feel that only by mastering all divine skills and Taoist techniques can I reach the ancestor's realm. Wuxia said excitedly, mentioning the ancestor. He clenched his fists tightly. Nzizai nodded and said, Then start with learning the escape skill first. Penetrating the essence of all things is seeing through all things, which will aid in your comprehension of heaven and earth. Thank you, ancestor. Wuxia saluted again. Thus, Wuxia began to follow Nzizai in cultivation. This matter spread within Wuxia. The current generation of Wuxia disciples had been passed down for 26 generations, and although Wuxia was accepted by the 14th generation disciple, making his lineage relatively high, being specially cared for by Nzizai was rare. Everyone could feel a new star rising, and Wuxia might become a representative figure of Wuxia. Since then, many disciples took the initiative to visit Wuxia, making his pride grow ever larger. 10,000 years passed in the blink of an eye. Wuxia had already become a genius disciple of Wuxia, and his fame even spread beyond the 9-spirit continent. On this day, Suhan came to the bamboo forest to visit Guan, talking about Wuxia. This Wuxia is truly extraordinary. After merely 10,000 years of cultivating immortality, he's already a divine thought true immortal. The key is his comprehension. He can learn any divine skill or spell just by seeing it once. It's simply absurd. Suhan said, standing in front of Guan, spreading his palms, his tone helpless. Once, he thought his talent was the highest, but after coming to Wuxia, he found geniuses abound, and some people's talents amazed him. Wuxia's sudden rise made him feel that the foundation of the 9-spirit continent and the celestial spirit great world aren't on the same level. Guan, who was reading a book, casually said, That's just because the divine skills he encountered were too low level. Some divine skills cannot be mastered just by seeing them once. I know, but facing most Taoist techniques with such comprehension is already very exaggerated. I heard the senior brother personally taught him. Ancestor, is there an arrangement of yours in this? Suhan asked curiously. He had a good relationship with Nzazai, knowing Nzazai's character. Since Nzazai's disciples grew up, he stopped accepting disciples and wouldn't teach other disciples to cultivate. Wuxia was an exception. Everyone could feel that Nzazai had high hopes for Wuxia, and Suhan thought the same. I am very busy and have no time to pay attention to these matters. Guan responded carelessly, then turned to a new page. Seeing his action, Suhan had many grievances he wanted to express but held back. Is Guan busy? Suhan used to think so, but after spending a lot of time with him, he truly felt that Ancestor was the most idle person. But it was precisely because he's the most idle that made his thoughts impossible to fathom. Suhan, if Wuxia faces a catastrophe and I cannot intervene, what would you do? Guan suddenly asked, his gaze never leaving the pages. Suhan, hearing this, was stunned, for he wouldn't think that Ancestor would ask meaningless questions. In an instant he thought of many possibilities, and his mood sank abruptly. I am a Wuxia disciple. I must defend Wuxia even if it costs my life, Suhan said firmly. This was indeed his heartfelt sentiment. Guan could hear that he had already hypothesized numerous terrifying scenarios. Some assumptions even amused Guan. Guan glanced at him, smiled. You don't need to be tense. There will never be a situation where I cannot intervene, only whether I want to or not. Upon hearing this, Suhan breathed a sigh of relief, and then he became alert again. If Wuxia faced a catastrophe, would Ancestor have a situation of not wanting to intervene? If it were other disciples, they might not think this far, but his grandfather came from the Supreme Sect. He knew of Ancestor's past with the Supreme Sect, knowing the Ancestor once supported and later abandoned the Supreme Sect. Could it be that one day, Ancestor would abandon Wuxia? Guan listened to his inner voice, thinking he indeed dares to speculate. Actually, Guan had no intention of abandoning Wuxia, as he had personally established it. But if Wuxia faced troubles that disciples could solve, he wouldn't intervene. Recently, Wuxin had brought him insight, giving him more thoughts about Wuxia. Since Wuxia had grown, why not make it grow even larger? He wasn't aiming to compete, but just wanted to see if the Wuxia he founded differed from the various major sects of the heavens. 10,000 years from now, you take a group of Wuxia disciples to the path of the Great Tao for training. It's also an opportunity for your honing, Guan said softly. When Suhan heard this, his eyes immediately brightened. He had long wanted to venture onto the path of the Great Tao. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know. Report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 849. The Patriarch's approval. Guan arranged for Suhan to lead the disciples to the path of the Great Tao, not with any special intention, but simply because many disciples wanted to go, so he decided to fulfill their wish. He couldn't let all the disciples stay within the beginningless forever. A cultivation lacking freedom has no meaning. Of course, Guan's change in mindset was still due to his own cultivation level's improvement, and his concerns were becoming less. Over the years, although his cultivation level hasn't changed significantly, his understanding of the Supreme Emperor of Ultimate Merging Tao has deepened, and he is even pursuing the Saint Realm. The closer he gets to the Saint Realm, the deeper his insights become. These insights also include thoughts on how to conduct oneself. Deliberately not doing something actually lacks authenticity. Acting with spontaneity is the true self. The peaceful life continues, even though the affairs of the world are constantly changing. They don't affect Guan. Millions of years later, Suhan, together with over 100 Wuxiji disciples, stepped into the 10,000 Realms Gate, heading towards the path of the Great Tao, including Wuxia. And this year, the unbeaten Emperor Ancestor sent a descendant to cultivate within the beginningless. This child was also his chosen candidate for ascension to immortality. He not only wanted this child to become an immortal god, but also hoped this child would possess the identity of a Wuxiji disciple. Guan did not refuse. The unbeaten Emperor Ancestor has branches in the celestial spirit great world. Although they do not stir the winds and clouds of the world, once their foundation unfolds, it will surely be astonishing. Guan agreed because this emperor clan behaved very discreetly, which satisfied him. For Guan, this matter was merely a minor incident, not disturbing his life pace. He let Jiangshi teach that emperor clan descendant. 8 million years later. SE of the Novel Fire. NT website on Google to access chapters of novels early and in the highest quality. Su Han returned with that group of disciples. No one had fallen, and Wu Xie once again became the focus. He was like the Emperor Xian, possessing the destiny of both the Great Tao Emperor and the Primordial Tao Emperor. The day after he returned, Wu Xie went to visit Zizai. Zizai had constructed a pavilion on a high peak, situated on the mountainside, providing a view of thousands of miles. Master Ancestor, I've returned. Wu Xie, already a heaven-encompassing free immortal, stood in front of the table, looking at Zizai, smiling with high spirits. Zizai scrutinized him, while he faced it openly. Although the young man still carried immense arrogance, Zizai could feel that he hadn't changed much from millions of years ago. Tell me about your experiences these years. Zizai said, simultaneously gesturing for Wu Xie to sit down. He was secretly shocked, for it hadn't been long since Wu Xie's cultivation level had caught up with him. Though he still had confidence in subduing Wu Xie's rapid growth made him somewhat uneasy. If Wu Xie truly became a threat and he couldn't contain him, wouldn't it cause trouble for the Master Ancestor? Wu Xie was unaware of Zizai's thoughts, and after sitting down he began to speak incessantly about his years of experience. Quickly, Zizai too was drawn in by his experiences. To become a great Tao Emperor, one must engage in battles on the Emperor Road, competing with Tao seekers of the same realm. The great Tao destiny would guide him to find opponents, and amidst battles, he would reflect upon the myriad heavens, cultivating the path of the primordial Tao Emperor. In the 8 million years he and other Wushiji disciples experienced many things together, including grudges and emotions. He even recounted a portion of his marriage. The woman from the Tai Great World indeed moved my heart, but I won't forget my original intention. So I chose to defeat her, not only ending her Emperor Road, but also severing my bond with her. I don't want to go to the Tai Great World. I belong to the beginningless. All my accomplishments should be rewarded to the beginningless, not taken away by others on the road. When saying this, Wu Xie's face was full of determination, as if trying hard to convince himself. Zizai had no comment on this matter because he too once severed this type of emotion. He had already surpassed the mortal spirit, not driven by instinctive desires. Ordinary emotions seldom moved him. Wu Xie looked up at Zizai and smiled, saying, Actually, I was able to achieve the great Tao Emperor thanks to the fellow disciples. If it weren't for them desperately protecting me every time I got injured, I would have died long ago. Truly, the so-called Emperor Road seems like a battle of heaven's chosen ones, but it's actually a contest of forces. Other heaven's chosen ones also have their own forces supporting them. But I've observed so many forces and feel that our beginningless is still the best, pure and simple, without so many entangled interests, without jealousy among disciples, only genuine happiness for fellow disciples. Zizai finally showed a smile and asked, Do you truly think so? Initially, when Wu Xie wanted to go to the path of the great Tao, he was very troubled. However, many came to persuade him, all saying that Wu Xie's talent shouldn't be wasted, that he should go out and venture. He didn't have enough reasons to refuse, so in the end he agreed. Throughout the 8 million years, he often worried that Wu Xie might turn bad, but it seemed that wasn't the case. He suddenly wondered if he had judged incorrectly. The threat is not Wu Xie. Maybe it's due to Wu Xie, like his disciples or descendants. Of course, Master Ancestor, I plan to preach my insights to other disciples. What do you think? Would it violate any rules? Wu Xie responded without hesitation. Zizai naturally had no objections. In his view, the Great Tao Emperor and Primordial Tao Emperor weren't vastly different, just different paths of cultivation. If Wushiji disciples could have more choices, that would be even better. He was very pleased with Wu Xie's broad-mindedness, so he decided to personally help Wu Xie establish a dojo for disciples to come and listen to teachings. In the days that followed, Wuxia smoothly preached, his teachings benefiting many disciples, greatly enhancing his status and prestige, and his deeds on the path of the great Tao became widely known. One evening, when Guan returned to the mountaintop courtyard, he overheard celestial demon child, Xinzhen, and Shangguan Xiener discussing Wuxia, feeling that Wuxia was outstanding, more brilliant than past disciples, even more exceptional than Tian Hao. Tian Hao had displayed his talent the moment he left the beginningless, but Wuxia, despite having already become a heaven-encompassing free immortal, remained steadfast in the beginningless. Moreover, Wuxia's cultivation speed indeed surpassed all Wushiji disciples. Celestial Demon Child asked Guan for his thoughts on Wuxia, and he simply gave a brief compliment. Once he returned inside, the three women remarked that it's true he doesn't care about his junior's accomplishments. Indeed, after all, he is too strong. Thus, Wuxia became the most outstanding existence among Wushiji disciples, and afterward, whenever Nzazai went out, he would take him along. Wuxia would also spar with heaven's chosen ones and great powers from various great heaven and earth sects, both showcasing the foundation of the beginningless and deterring the ambition of those sections. The beginningless wouldn't engage in conquest, but if anyone attempted to disrupt the heavens and earth, the beginningless wouldn't stand by idly. Competition among forces can proceed, but there mustn't be any evil demon methods sacrificing all living beings and slaughtering innocent spirits. For Wuxia, life became glorious, yet he always felt regretful inside. He hadn't had a real conversation with the ancestor, they only occasionally passed by each other. Without the ancestor's recognition, he always felt he wasn't strong enough and couldn't be considered a true genius. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 850, A Moment's Difference Rumble. In the dim cosmic void, the sound of thunder echoed, overwhelmingly oppressive. Xu and Zhangbuku, clad in golden battle armor, soared through the clouds. Their gaze was fixed on the depths of the void, where red clouds surged, seemingly like a massive and terrifying demon bearing its claws and fangs. This realm is at the edge of the heavenly Tao, and the destiny here is weak. Occasionally, chaos evil demons invade. We must be extremely cautious this time. Once we find the life heart mysterious iron, well, withdraw immediately. Suyu turned his head to Zhangbuku and earnestly said. Zhangbuku rolled his eyes and snapped. Whenever have you not been the more reckless one between us? Suyu laughed and said, I'm just worried you might become conceited after your breakthrough. As they bantered, they flew onward, their divine sense sweeping across the void, scanning one meteor after another. After a long while, the two arrived at a dark red void, dotted with red spots and intertwined lightning. There were not only meteors here but also pieces of broken continents and even remnants of ancient, colossal buildings floating. Zhangbuku suddenly felt uneasy, as if a terrifying power was secretly watching them, making him even more vigilant. Suyu raised his right hand and wiped his forehead, where a vertical eye opened, bursting with golden light, creating multiple golden eye shadows. The two continued forward in silence. The life heart mysterious iron is over there. Suyu suddenly spoke. His figure flashed, appearing out of thin air on a meteor, which seemed small from afar but felt like a vast and desolate land upon his landing. Before him lay a massive iron stone reflecting cold light, like the blade of a giant sword piercing the ground, towering 1,000 feet high. Zhangbuku joined Suyu by his side, his face showing delight upon seeing the life heart mysterious iron. Suyu wasted no time and raised his hand, attempting to extract the life heart mysterious iron, but his expression changed the next second. The life heart mysterious iron trembled, but remained firmly on the ground. Frowning, Zhangbuku also raised his hand, using his mana to assist Suyu. Yet, even combined efforts could not pull the iron from the ground, as if a formidable hand was dragging it below. No, we must abandon this piece, Zhangbuku said solemnly, feeling certain that continuing would lead to disaster. Suyu replied seriously. There is certainly danger further ahead. The best outcome is taking this piece. Persist a little longer, and if unsuccessful, then abandon. The golden eye on Suyu's forehead opened wide, and a beam of golden light shone on the life-heart mysterious iron, a golden stream flowing down its surface and penetrating the soil. Rumble. The ground began to quake. More precisely, the entire meteor trembled as though about to explode. Suyu's face changed drastically. He instantly grasped Zhang Buku's wrist, carrying him away. Zhang Buku, momentarily flustered, pulled out a divine weapon with his other hand. An unimaginable pressure descended, darkening the void further, pressing upon Zhang Buku and Suyu, who instinctively unleashed all their mana to resist. We are no longer immortal gods. If we die, we are truly consigned to oblivion. Suyu gritted his teeth, a treasure tower appearing on his hand. He raised it, and it emitted azure light enveloping them. Yet the pressure remained intense and their flight speed slowed significantly. Need you say it? I told you to stop earlier, but you didn't listen. Search * the Nelfer. Net website on Google to access chapters of novels early and in the highest quality. Zhang Buku muttered with darkened expression, having experienced such situations countless times, almost used to them. Then their vision suddenly darkened. Zhang Buku instinctively looked up, seeing a colossal, dark hand descending towards them. Even though they hadn't halted, the hand remained overhead as if their flight was ineffective. Grinding his teeth, Zhang Buku tightly gripped his divine weapon and struck upwards despite knowing the disparity in strength. He resolved to fight. Meanwhile, Jiyuan, far away on the immortal-seeking island in the celestial spirit great world, observed Zhang Buku's calamity within an auction. Named Buku, yet suffering endlessly. Oh my dear disciple, truly hard to safeguard you. Guan murmured, seated in a private room of a pavilion, where translucent curtains allowed him a view of the terrace outside. On the terrace, a cultivator was showcasing auction items, while the other rooms were shrouded by curtains, appearing engulfed in dark mist from outside, obscuring their interiors. Guan was not there to buy anything, just to enjoy the spectacle. The calamity that befell Zhang Buku drew his attention. Zhang Buku had cultivated in the celestial extreme 9 heavens for years, recently breaking through to the innate golden immortal realm. He and Suyu ventured to that realm to seek materials for crafting supreme treasures. Having forged the Vajra undying body, his strength far exceeded his realm, necessitating a fitting supreme treasure to reveal his divine skill's power. They faced misfortune not due to bad luck, but premeditated targeting. Dark Heavenly Court. More precisely, the Dark Heavenly Court targeted Suyu, not Zhang Buku. Acting was Emperor Bone Profound Venerable, whose cultivation level was Mixed Element Profound Venerable Immortal. Even if Suyu unleashed his heavenly sun origin, he was no match for such a foe. Guan didn't immediately intervene to rescue Zhang Buku, having foreseen Zhang Buku's future. Though Zhang Buku would endure hardship under Emperor Bone Profound Venerable, he would also gain substantial opportunities, leading to a surge in cultivation level. Even if Zhang Buku became tainted by the Dark Heavenly Court's destiny, Guan knew ways to extricate him from the sea of suffering. Guan looked at Emperor Bone Profound Venerable, his sentiments starkly different from their previous encounter. During their last confrontation, though Emperor Bone Profound Venerable wasn't his match, now, everything about Emperor Bone Profound Venerable was apparent to him. He could dictate his fate and negate his past. When Emperor Bone Profound Venerable led the Dark Heavenly Court against the Celestial Court, the Celestial Emperor likely felt similar. In chaos or the Heavenly Tao, Emperor Bone Profound Venerable's strength was formidable. Yet to Guan and the Celestial Emperor, he was akin to a mortal spirit. Guan pondered whether higher-level existences viewed him, and the Celestial Emperor similarly. Currently, he didn't sense such power, but he would assume it existed. Such invisible pressure kept him grounded. Supreme Emperor of Ultimate Merging Tao wasn't enough for him. He aimed to not only surpass Emperor Bone Profound Venerable by one great realm but 2, 3, 4 even more. As long as life evolution continues, his limits won't exist. If you make the right choice for him, there's a path to life. If you choose wrongly, if the Celestial Emperor doesn't destroy you, then I will. Relaxed in his chair, Guan propped his face with one hand, speaking softly. Everyone possesses myriad fates. A single thought can alter their destiny. Guan kept all of Emperor Bone Profound Venerable's potential fates in view. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know. Report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 851. Surpassing the Son of Heaven. Zhang Buku felt like he was having a long and indistinct dream, in which he was very tired, not knowing what he was doing, as if some terrifying presence was continuously chasing him. Finally, his consciousness detached from that heavy dream and began to awaken. He opened his eyes, and what came into his view was the endlessly high gray sky, clouds layered circle upon circle, making the sky appear so distant. He widened his eyes, suddenly sat up, and discovered he was sitting on the water's surface, with a sense of grounded stability beneath him, as if it were solid ground. He focused his gaze and saw at the end of the water surface a vast fog, while in front of the fog, Suyu stood, facing away from him. He stood up and asked, "Suyu, are you okay?" Suyu did not answer him, nor did he turn around, which made Zhang Buku frown. His divine sense had already dispersed, but he could not touch that fog. He did not know what was hidden within it. The divine sense swept in other directions, finding no signs of life for the time being, which made him suspect even more that an unknown and terrifying existence was hidden in the fog. Seeing that Suyu was still not turning around, Zhang Buku hesitated for a moment before stepping forward. His divine sense could perceive Suyu's expression. Suyu was not lost in a trance but was frowning, his eyes fixed on the front, seemingly observing something. Zhang Buku came beside Suyu and asked softly, "What are you looking at? Why are you not answering me?" Suyu gazed ahead and said in a deep voice, "Standing here, do you think it will be bad? The real trouble is about to start, and we have nowhere to escape." Upon hearing this, Zhang Buku looked ahead. As he watched, he found the murky fog had become clear. Deep within the fog seemed to be a small mountain, atop which sat a mysterious figure, with a languid posture but exuding an overwhelming arrogance. Looking at this figure, Zhang Buku suddenly felt a strong urge to kneel in worship. He struggled to control this emotion, which made his whole body stiff. He stared at that figure, falling into a trance, becoming as unresponsive as Suyu. Through the fog, that mysterious figure sitting on the small mountain was none other than the Emperor Bone Profound Venerable. Emperor Bone Profound Venerable still maintained his form of white bone, wearing a dragon head golden crown, with beads gently swaying in the wind, and a dark golden long spear standing behind him, leaning against his back. At this moment, Emperor Bone Profound Venerable was scrutinizing Zhang Buku. He initially came for Suyu, but he discovered Zhang Buku was not ordinary. This child's destiny had clearly been altered multiple times, and furthermore, he was brewing a special kind of fortune. Compared to Suyu, Zhang Buku unexpectedly held greater potential. Born of mortal spirit, yet able to surpass the Son of Heaven, Emperor Bone Profound Venerable felt it would be a pity to kill this child directly. Perhaps he could be nurtured. Though the creatures of the dark heavenly court could also reproduce, in terms of talent, the geniuses of the heavenly Tao were still superior. To truly overthrow the heavenly court, greater strength must be accumulated. Emperor Bone Profound Venerable recalled the previous battle. The celestial emperor did not even appear, yet he was defeated by a celestial Tao Venerable. Moreover, before this, he was defeated by a mysterious being. As a primordial Profound Venerable immortal, he had suffered 2 defeats in a row. He could not accept this fact. After ending the war with the heavenly court, he temporarily left the dark heavenly court to seek his own chances. He had his eyes on the Son of Heaven's root bones, aiming to explore the power of the celestial emperor through him. Unexpectedly, capturing the Son of Heaven led to an unexpected joy. Emperor Bone Profound Venerable pondered while increasing his own pressure of cause and effect, intending to test Zhang Buku and Suyu. On the other side, Guan had already returned to Wuxia, and after confirming that Zhang Buku would not encounter any trouble in the short term, he no longer paid attention. That plane had already detached from the heavenly Tao. The world contained rules that isolated the probing of cause and effect, making it difficult even for a Tao Extreme Tao Yuo immortal to find it, but for Guan he could step right in. Moreover, Guan could transcend time. Even if Emperor Bone Profound Venerable killed Zhang Buku, Guan could cross to the time before Zhang Buku's death. This is the power of the Supreme Emperor of Ultimate Merging Tao. Of course, the Supreme Emperor of Ultimate Merging Dao cannot change his past before reaching this realm. When Guan reached the level of Supreme Emperor of Ultimate Merging Dao, everything in the past became illusory, belonging to his past, but others cannot probe into this past, nor traverse to the past to kill him. Returning to the courtyard, Guan saw Zhenqin coming over, chatting with Shenzhen. Upon seeing Guan return, Zhenqin quickly stood up and bowed to Guan. I've told you countless times, no need for formalities between us. Guan said with a smile, one that was kindly, instantly relaxing Zhenqin quite a bit. She smiled sheepishly and followed with, Master, I came to find you because I wish to enter the 10,000 Realms Gate, to travel and explore a bit. What do you think? The 10,000 Realms Gate is the most magnificent structure on the 9-spirit continent, leading to all heavens and myriad realms, more transformative than the World Gate deep in the universe. However, the 10,000 Realms Gate only allows exit, but no entry. Once you leave through it, you'll have to find another way to return. Guan casually replied. If you want to go, go ahead. I won't stop you. Nowadays, Wushiji disciples are spread across the 3,000 great worlds in various domains. Some perish, some take root and establish their own sections. Guan will not interfere as long as they make their choice. Zhenqin is different from other disciples. If she ventures out, Guan will surely watch over her secretly. He is not worried about Zhenqin making a move. He only needs a thought to resolve all the troubles Zhenqin will encounter next. Master, although I want to leave, I'm not in a hurry to go. Can you see if there's anything I can do for you? Leaving just like that, not knowing when I can return. My conscience would be uneasy because I haven't been able to repay you yet. Of course, if I gain great fortune someday, I will definitely return. Zhenqin came to Guan playfully, her smile journeying his thoughts back over 1 billion years ago, when she was still struggling in the outer Taishan sect. Guan raised his hand, ruffled her hair, and said with a smile, Master doesn't need you to repay anything. Don't overthink. In the future, if you encounter difficulties you can't solve, just call out to Master. And Master will have Wuxia Divine Sparrow come to your aid. As the words fell, a 7-colored rainbow descended from the sky, landing on Gu An's shoulder, none other than the Wuxia Divine Sparrow. The Wuxia Divine Sparrow tilted its head to look at Zhenqin, its eyes lively and innocent like a child's. CTH Novel Fire. Net website on Google to access chapters of novels early and in the highest quality. Zhenqin couldn't help but ask curiously, is the Wuxia Divine Sparrow really that powerful? She suddenly recalled a legend. During the Son of Heaven struggle, a divine sparrow with a glow of 7 colors saved the 3,000 great worlds. Could it be that the divine sparrow was the Wuxia Divine Sparrow? Yet, looking at the Wuxia Divine Sparrow on Master's shoulder, she found it hard to imagine this little creature possessing such powerful strength. Guan laughed. Naturally, the divine beings I raise are surely powerful. Moreover, you will meet your elderly Yi later. If he gets injured, you can tell him if he can't hold on, just come to Wuxia. Wuxia can satisfy his ambition to become stronger. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 852. The calamity returns. Even though she received Guan's promise of protection, Zhenqin did not let down her guard. Before entering the 10,000 Realms Gate, she chose to enter a lengthy seclusion. Time continued to pass. Following an Xian, another innate golden immortal emerged within the beginningless, none other than the Blood Prison Great Saint. The breakthrough of the Blood Prison Great Saint caused quite a stir, sparking a pursuit of becoming innate golden immortals within the beginningless. Now in the Taoist field of the beginningless, the number of heaven-encompassing free immortals surpassed 50. Excluding second-generation disciples, everyone else is among the most outstanding talents of each generation. Not inferior even compared to past figures like Tian Hao, Zhao Rushan, Emperor Tianhong, and Yuan Luo. In the midst of this trend, Zhenqin quietly entered the 10,000 Realms Gate, which Suhan only found out about afterward, leaving him very concerned for Zhenqin. 20 million years later, someone achieved the innate golden immortal realm, shaking the entire dojo. It was none other than the 15th generation disciple Wu Xia. He was the youngest innate golden immortal within the beginningless, making any genius pale in comparison. Even second-generation disciples came out of seclusion to witness him. Wu Xie crossed the tribulation within the dojo with an earth-shattering commotion. Upon successfully crossing it, he continued to consolidate his cultivation, attracting many disciples to observe. In the courtyard, Guan was sitting on a chair in front of the artifact refining cauldron, one hand holding a book and the other controlling the Taiching True Fire underneath the cauldron. SAR the novel fire. NT website on Google to access chapters of novels early and in the highest quality. A group of disciples entered the yard, still talking about Wu Xie. The fact that a 15th-generation disciple surpassed many second-generation disciples to achieve the innate golden immortal first truly surprised them. They had always paid attention to Wu Xie and believed he had unparalleled talent. Yet when Wu Xie surpassed them, they felt it was unreal. Such a cultivation speed was truly exaggerated. And Zizai also came. He had not yet achieved the innate golden immortal realm, but was still genuinely happy for Wu Xie. He once worried that Wu Xie would become a scourge for the beginningless, but after tens of millions of years together, he believed Wu Xie would not be that scourge. And Zizai quickly approached Guan, bowed and excitedly said, "Ancestor, Wu Xie really achieved the innate golden immortal." Guan did not look at him, only responding with a hum. And Zizai noticed spiritual energy surging within the artifact refining cauldron. Bravely he asked, "Ancestor, Wu Xie hasn't done any great deeds, but he's now a genius representative among the disciples of the beginningless. Do you think you could grant him a Dao treasure?" The Dao treasures Guan gave them were exceptionally powerful. Outside, they had never encountered treasures stronger than Dao treasures. Dao treasures could not only facilitate combat, but also help them cultivate and guide them in understanding the great Dao. Dao treasures have become the highest award within the beginningless. And Zizai had always known of Wu Xie's desire for the ancestor's approval. He secretly wondered why the ancestor gave special care to Su Han and Duanli, but never showed interest in a talent like Wu Xie. Achieving the innate golden immortal is indeed impressive, and the Dao treasure within this cauldron was crafted for him. Guan replied. He neither particularly favored nor disliked Wu Xie and naturally wouldn't suppress him. Wu Xie's achievement of the innate golden immortal indeed invigorated the beginningless disciples, deserving of a reward. Upon hearing this, Zizai was taken aback, asking, "Ancestor, you opened the cauldron millions of years ago. Could it be that you foresaw he would successfully break through?" Guan glanced at him and said brusquely, "I've long told you, all your futures are in my eyes. I also know you're about to achieve the innate golden immortal too." And Zizai scratched his head, offering an awkward smile. Although he admired the ancestor, when the ancestor displayed abilities beyond his comprehension, it continued to astound him. Other second-generation disciples heard that Zizai was close to reaching the innate golden immortal, and gathered around him. "Well done, you rascal." And Sheng Tian, who shared the same surname, punched Zizai. Being a descendant of An Hao, he had followed Guan in cultivation for over 100 million years, yet hadn't found a chance to break through to the innate golden immortal. And he couldn't help but admire this junior. Celestial Cyan, Tian Bai, Jiang Shi, Blood Prison Great Saint, and others also praised Zizai, making him feel embarrassed. In front of his juniors he was the stern senior brother and ancestor, but in front of his seniors he was always uneasy. Guan did not interrupt their discussion. Blood Prison Great Saint even asked him for his opinion on Wu Xie. What is there to evaluate? He's the greatest genius in the history of the beginningless. Is there anyone who doubts it? Guan replied casually, leaving everyone speechless. Months later, Wu Xie had finished consolidating his cultivation, and on his way back to the cave mansion he heard other disciples mention Guan's words. The greatest genius in all of history. Wu Xie felt both elated and terrified. He had never had a one-on-one encounter with the ancestor, and was unclear about what kind of person the ancestor was. All along he behaved conspicuously just to attract the ancestor's attention, but he had never succeeded. Now, having truly received the ancestor's praise, he instead felt a bit flustered. Afraid it was a jest, he asked many people, and even Zizai confirmed that the ancestor indeed said so. leaving him in immense satisfaction. He really wanted to meet the ancestor, but didn't dare to visit proactively. In the following days, he would deliberately or inadvertently stroll around the mountain path Guan usually passed by. When he encountered Guan, all he received was a slight nod, making him hesitant to approach. During each encounter, Wuxia could only watch Guan leave, inwardly annoyed at his lack of courage. Guan didn't intentionally cold-shoulder Wuxia. After all, he did nod at him. He could hear Wuxia's inner thoughts but couldn't possibly go out of his way to chat with him. He genuinely wasn't interested in Wuxia as a person, just not sharing common interests. Wuxia was entirely a cultivation fanatic, neither reading books, drawing, nor fishing. He was simply uninteresting. A century later, Wuxia completely gave up on the idea of seeking out the ancestor. He decided to dedicate himself once more, continuing to enter closed-door cultivation. Achieving the innate golden immortal was not enough. He would continue to break through. He wanted the ancestor to personally summon him, to hear the ancestor praise him with his own ears. This goal invigorated Wuxia greatly, making him train even more diligently than before his breakthrough into the innate golden immortal realm. On this day, towards the end of spring, Zizai came to the lakeside to meet Guan. This time, Guan had actively summoned him. This was something Wuxia dreamed of, but for Zizai, it was a source of pressure. Guan rarely sought him out in this manner, so being called alone this time, something major must have happened. Sure enough, just after he finished bowing, he heard the first sentence from the ancestor which made his expression change hugely. The calamity of the 3,000 great worlds is here again. This time, it will affect the beginningless unlike before. Hearing these words, Zizai wasn't surprised because the peaceful times had lasted too long, so any disturbance was understandable. Where does this calamity come from? And why will it affect the beginningless? Zizai hurriedly asked. Guan replied. This time the calamity originates from within the celestial court, and involves the Son of Heaven. Tian Hao is the reincarnation of the Son of Heaven, and has already returned to the celestial spirit great world. If someone comes to seize him, do you think the beginningless can stand by indifferently? If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know. Report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 853. Marshal of Heaven, the Celestial Court. Tian Hao. With these two names appearing together, Zizai immediately understood that the impending calamity would be even greater than the previous power struggle among the Sons of Heaven. Guan then briefly discussed the situation regarding the Heavenly Emperor, without revealing too much, but ensuring that Zizai understood what he would face next, while advising Zizai not to disclose the matter, and simply focus on planning his strategy to manage the calamity. Zizai grasped Guan's true intention. This was both a calamity for Wuxia and a trial set by the ancestor. He felt no pressure, but was instead filled with determination. The ancestor would never test him without reason. Once he succeeded, the ancestor would undoubtedly reward him, assisting him to advance further and faster on his cultivation path. All right, go back and cultivate. Guan concluded their conversation, and Zizai immediately paid his respects and took his leave. After Zizai departed, Guan remained by the lakeside, continuing to fish. In his eyes, the lake surface reflected scenes of various futures. In the future, immortal gods would descend to the human world to slaughter the immortal cultivation sect, under the pretense of eradicating chaos evil demons. This was a tactic aimed at Xianyuan human venerable, who, when facing the overwhelming power of the Heavenly Emperor, would have no choice but to accept the immortal gods cleansing the human world. The masses, unaware of the celestial court's internal conflicts, would blame the disasters brought by the celestial court on Xianyuan human venerable, causing his faith to plummet, and eventually leading to his immortal position being undermined until it was stripped away by Zhangtian. Without his immortal position, the Heavenly Emperor would have countless ways to eliminate Xianyuan human venerable, while also reclaiming control over the 3,000 great worlds to establish a new order. The Heavenly Emperor's methods were truly ruthless and merciless. Many immortal gods believed the Heavenly Emperor resembled the Celestial Emperor the most, prompting Guan to wonder if the Celestial Emperor had once done similar things. Perhaps the 3,000 great worlds truly harbored chaos evil demons. Yet the heavenly emperor merely desired to leave the inhabitants of the 3,000 great worlds destitute. For the sake of power struggles, he trampled on all living beings carelessly, a behavior that Guan could not condone. However, there were countless individuals like the heavenly emperor, and Guan realized that if he tried to manage them all, he would never have a moment of peace. Evil is itself a part of the world. Guiding toward good is the righteous Tao, but evil cannot be eradicated. Guan would not extend his responsibility to cover the 3,000 great worlds. Protecting the celestial spirit great world was sufficient. Great calamities are ordeals that all beings need to undergo. Life is not always smooth for every living creature, and Guan wanted to see how Wuxia would perform in this great calamity. Since the end of the power struggle among the sons of heaven, the number of Wuxiaji disciple had doubled, seemingly harmonious, but all under the guise of Wuxi's strength. Of course, for Guan, this great calamity also felt like a grand drama. Though the heavenly emperor acted against the 3,000 great worlds, he underestimated their essence. Little did he know, this conflict would exceed his expectations. Chaos evil demons would indeed emerge, and even the celestial Tao Venerable would get involved. Guan was quite hesitant about whether to engage in a battle with the celestial emperor. Once he appeared openly with his grandeur, the celestial emperor would surely appear. According to his nature, he would definitely not engage in a battle unless he felt assured, and it wouldn't be stable unless he was a layer higher in the great realm above his enemy. Yet he had formed a bond with the celestial emperor during reincarnation, and it would be regrettable not to spar with the celestial emperor in the same realm. Although he hadn't yet found the opportunity for a breakthrough, his intuition told him that if he did, the celestial emperor could never catch up. Forget it. Safety is the most important. Guan decided he couldn't define the celestial emperor with imagination. He must consider the celestial emperor as the strongest, most evil enemy in order to prepare for any situation. Encountering a less malignant celestial emperor would be optimal. In thoughts, overestimate your opponent as much as possible. Guan thought while simulating the future. In the bright cosmic void, devoid of stars, only fragments of luminous clouds existed. Some like the creation god mountain, others resembling divine beasts crouching, extraordinarily serene. Deep within the void, atop a sea of clouds stood a palace with red eaves, incessantly emitting golden glow. Above the door hung a placard engraved with Great World Divine Palace. Inside the palace, Xianyuan Human Venerable sat cross-legged on the lotus seat atop the high platform, his mana spreading, displaying a heaven and earth Dharma image behind him. Suddenly, footsteps echoed from the entrance, reverberating within the hall. Xianyuan Human Venerable slowly opened his eyes, gazing at the visitor, his brow furrowed. A man clad in silver battle armor approached, two large flags inserted on his back, a miniature flood dragon perched atop his crown, spirit mist rising at his feet, his entire presence imposing. The Marshal of Heaven. Xianyuan Human Venerable enunciated the visitor's title. Your Highness Xianyuan, I am here at the command of the Supreme Heavenly Monarch. The Marshal of Heaven advanced with the stride of a dragon and tiger, his voice arriving even before his person reached the steps, strong and unyielding, remaining unabashed even before the Son of Heaven. Xianyuan Human Venerable watched him, observing him approach the steps. Despite the Marshal of Heaven looking up at him in admiration, he felt a palpable pressure. What does the Heavenly Monarch command? Xianyuan Human Venerable asked. Sichuan Old Immortal hasn't returned. Did an incident occur? Xianyuan Human Venerable anticipated this day since the Heavenly Emperor assumed power, but he hadn't expected it to come so swiftly, and even deploying the Marshal of Heaven. The Marshal of Heaven was a supreme immortal, leading all celestial gods. In cultivation level, both were in the Miaozhen Daluo immortal realm. Yet the Marshal of Heaven had reached the pinnacle of this realm, possibly stepping into the next great realm, which was the immortal Dao Peak. Sar the Nefire. Et website on Google to access chapters of novels early and in the highest quality. The Marshal of Heaven spoke emotionlessly. Since the dark heavenly court was repelled, the Heavenly Monarch has been divining the remnants of the dark heavenly court, foreseeing that the 3,000 great worlds concealed the dark heavenly court's chess pieces. requiring complete eradication. He will deploy heavenly soldiers and generals to investigate the 3,000 great worlds, and you'll need to accompany me, as there was once contact between immortal gods and the dark heavenly court. Upon hearing this, Xianyuan Human Venerable was instantly incensed, eyes wide, roaring angrily. Impudence! I am the son of heaven, child of the celestial emperor. How could I collude with the dark heavenly court? The Marshal of Heaven replied calmly. Emperor Changyu dissipated the essence of his main body, transferring the origin into his avatar, which has already merged with the dark fortune. Hearing this, the furious Xianyuan Human Venerable was dismayed. How could this, Xianyuan Human Venerable suddenly lost words. Possible betrayal by the Son of Heaven conferred the Marshal of Heaven with the right to bring him back to the celestial court. However, Xianyuan Human Venerable could not fathom why the Son of Heaven would betray the celestial court. Could it be for the position of the celestial emperor? But Emperor Changyu had no interest in the position of the celestial emperor. He even disliked participating in the power struggles of the Sons of Heaven. He had seen Emperor Shanji's avatar during his conflict with the great immortal divine Yuan. Immediately after gaining power, such betrayal from a Son of Heaven surprised Xianyuan Human Venerable, feeling something was amiss. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know. Report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 854. Battle of the Human God. Xuanyuan Human Venerable's face was fluctuating between light and shade, and the Marshal of Heaven did not urge him, patiently waiting for his decision. For a long time, Xianyuan Human Venerable let out a breath of turbid air, stood up, and walked towards the steps, with each step his sharpness fading away. When he descended the steps, he appeared utterly desolate, stopping beside the Marshal of Heaven. Marshal of Heaven, you are the commander of heavenly gods, having made countless contributions to the celestial court, and are regarded as the war god by all living beings. I hope that in the coming years, you can bring less suffering to the 3,000 great worlds. Xianyuan Human Venerable said softly, well aware of the consequences of the heavenly emperor sending immortal gods into the 3,000 great worlds. Unless an unforeseen event occurs, he unable to touch the 3,000 great worlds, can only watch the lives suffer, shaking their faith in him. But he had no way to resist, not to mention he was no match for the Marshal of Heaven. Once he resists, the heavenly emperor could lodge a complaint with Zhangtian, suppressing him with the celestial Tao, and his end would be even more miserable. The Marshal of Heaven showed no expression, not looking at Xianyuan Human Venerable. He only responded softly, I am also a celestial court immortal god. I have my duties, I listen to the celestial mandate, but will also uphold the immortal position. Upon hearing this, Xianyuan Human Venerable's lips curled up, and he continued stepping forward. All parties of the celestial court say that among the new gods, only the Marshal of Heaven has the hope to become the celestial Tao Venerable. Now it seems you indeed have such boldness. The Marshal of Heaven turned and followed Xianyuan Human Venerable away, his expression unchanged from beginning to end. A light shone through the great world divine palace's door, lengthening their shadows, as they gradually disappeared into the golden light. The immortal gods are about to investigate the 3,000 great worlds, and only Guan and Zizai know of this. Not even Tai, immortal monarch, celestial spirit god, and other immortal gods are aware. In the blink of an eye, another 7 million years pass by. At noon on this day, Guan stood at the edge of a cliff on the mountain peak where he resided, looking up at the sky. It's finally coming. Guan saw a heavenly ascension stairs appearing in the void of a certain great thousand world, and immortal gods stepping down from it. Some of these immortal gods opened their right hands, revealing a celestial army exceeding 100,000 in number, flying out like locusts, swiftly heading in all directions of the universe. The time in the celestial court is different from that in the 3,000 great worlds. 7 million years is the time of the great thousand worlds, while not much time has passed in the celestial court. Among these immortal gods were 5 Dao extreme Daoyuo immortals, who deliberately concealed their aura, but could not escape Guan's discerning eyes. This differed from the future Guan had previously seen. Since the Emperor Xian was defeated in the celestial spirit great world, the destiny of this calamity changed. Initially, only one Dao Extreme Daoyuo Immortal was to lead the army, and even without action, the Immortal God Army was enough to sweep across the 3,000 great worlds. Guan pulled up his attribute panel to check. Name: Guan. Lifespan: 157,690, 703/49, 662, 347, 008, 512, 977. Physique: Creation Essence Body. Cultivation Level: Ultimate Merging Dao Venerable Emperor Realm Perfection 4,900,000,000,000 years Lifespan. Nearly 5 trillion years lifespan. It seems a lot, but it's still far from a breakthrough. Guan took nearly 22 trillion years of lifespan to break through to the ultimate merging Dao Venerable Emperor, and has not yet accumulated the same lifespan as before. Back then, he could obtain so much lifespan mainly by relying on the evil demons from the struggle for the Son of Heaven. Killing grants lifespan far faster than planting flowers and grass. However, Guan cannot wantonly kill, as he cannot get past the hurdle in his heart. But with the descent of immortal gods, Guan saw another opportunity. This descent of the immortal gods will evolve into a war between the human gods. Even forces beyond the 3,000 great worlds will intervene, with the dark heavenly court, eternal Dao Extreme, and even the underworld seizing the opportunity. Guan will have many chances to seize lifespans. In Guan's eyes, the future is still changing, as various powers interfere in the calamity of the 3,000 great worlds, altering the catastrophe. The Heavenly Emperor still underestimated the power hidden within chaos and the celestial Tao. He intended to take the 3,000 great worlds as his knife, yet others seized the chance to conspire against him. As this evolution continues, it's only a matter of time before the Heavenly Emperor enters the stage, and by then, the situation will be uncontrollable. Guan can see such a fate, surely the Celestial Emperor can too, making him curious about the Celestial Emperor's perspective on all this. The path of the Great Tao. A continent floats in the dark void, on which stands an incomparably gigantic city, with countless beings coming and going, its radiance being the only source of light in the void. In the city, within a pavilion, Liya and Zhenqin sat facing each other at a table. Liya wore a plain white robe. With loose hair, pale face, he looked at Zhenqin, smiled and said, "This city is no simple place. The brews here are all immortal products. Don't be deceived by such a small bottle. Its price is not low." Zhenqin raised the wine glass on the table, toasted Liya with it, and drank it all in one go. She put down the glass and asked with concern, "Uncle Master, did you encounter any trouble? Why is your aura so chaotic?" Now Liya had already become a heaven-encompassing free immortal, with a cultivation higher than Zhenqin's. Yet Zhenqin could feel his unstable aura, showing his injuries were not light. Liya shook his head with a smile. "It's nothing serious. On the path of the Great Tao there are countless opportunities. Conflict is inevitable. Sometimes encountering Taoist emperors or primordial Tao emperors is bad luck. Don't worry, such injuries are nothing to me." In front of the junior Zhenqin, he could not show weakness, lest she return to tell Guan about it. To dispel Zhenqin's skepticism, Liya proactively narrated his recent grudges. Of course, the conclusion of the matters naturally ended in a grand manner. "Dare to provoke me, even though I come from the mortal realm. I will not tolerate them." Liya boasted enthusiastically, spreading his arms, supporting them on the table edges, showcasing his demeanor as a great power. Zhenqin was silent for a moment, then said, "Uncle Master, if you can't endure it, you can return to Wuxia. My master said that there are opportunities for you to grow stronger in Wuxia. There's no need to struggle so hard." At this, Liya's smile froze. He paused, coughed awkwardly. "Why would I struggle? Such carefree and freewheeling life is exactly what I desire. Don't overthink it. When you return, tell your master I am fine, he need not worry, and tell him to be cautious. Who knows, next time we meet, I might have surpassed him in cultivation." After hearing this, Zhenqin couldn't help but ask, "Uncle Master, what is your current cultivation level?" Liya replied proudly, "I have already attained heaven-encompassing free immortal." CTH Novel, F. Iyer. Net website on Google to access chapters of novels early and in the highest quality. Before he left the celestial spirit great world, The heaven-encompassing free immortal was the most powerful realm. After hearing this, Zhenqin mourned for Liya in her heart. The blood prison great saint, that ox, had already attained innate golden immortal. Uncle Master, why do you trouble yourself so? She wanted to spread this matter, yet felt it inappropriate, as the blood prison great saint had previously mentioned wanting to teach Liya a lesson, because Liya did not respect him when he was an ox. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 855. Before the great change until the moment they parted, Zhenqin couldn't reveal the true situation of Wuxia, because Liya wasn't part of Wuxia yet. Naturally, she couldn't disclose all the details of Wuxia. She only needed to convey her master's intention. The fortuitous encounter with Liya made Zhenqin admire her master's ability to deduce events even more, while also leaving a deep impression on her heart. In all heavens and myriad realms, there are countless opportunities, but the true great opportunity is still her master. Cultivating beside her master is the fastest path of cultivation. Although Zhenqin thought this way, she didn't regret coming out. Only by broadening her horizons could she truly appreciate how precious what she had before was. Besides, she would return sooner or later, and she would earnestly reflect on everything she encountered along the way, transforming it into insights to bring back to Wuxiji disciples. Walking through the streets of the city, Zhenqin's intense emotions grew even stronger. She suddenly thought of Shenzhen and Shangguan Xiener who loved to write, and then of the special works of Book Saint Xuantianyi. If she could record the majestic sights she saw in a magic artifact and bring it back, would it be more effective? However, some scenes can only be truly felt through personal experience to sense their vast Tao intent. While Zhenqin was pondering, a large number of cultivators suddenly flew over from above, each with an imposing aura, interrupting her thoughts. She looked up, raising her eyebrows. The unusual situation in the sky attracted the attention of the living beings on the streets, and they began to discuss. It's people from Xiandao Mansion. Something significant must be happening. Don't you know? Remnants of the dark heavenly court have appeared in the 3,000 great worlds. The celestial court has dispatched immortal gods to investigate. This disturbance is even greater than the previous struggle for the Son of Heaven. Isn't the 3,000 great worlds already under Xianyuan Human Venerable's control? Is he the one investigating? Not so. It's said that stronger forces are involved, and Xianyuan Human Venerable might face difficulties. How do you know so much? My fellow Taoist participated in the struggle for the Son of Heaven millions of years ago. He sent me a message back then, saying that the 3,000 great worlds would undergo major changes. Since the outbreak of the struggle for the Son of Heaven, the celestial court is no longer so mysterious. At least Xianyuan Human Venerable, Great Immortal Divine Yuan, and their subordinates, the immortal gods, have become well known across the heavens. Upon hearing them mention the 3,000 great worlds, Zhenqin's brow involuntarily furrowed. She felt an instant urge to return, but upon further thought, realized that with her strength, she couldn't change such a catastrophe. And besides, the celestial spirit great world had Wuxia, so nothing could happen. She continued forward, attentively listening to the information along the way. Before this, she would also hear news of the heavenly court immortals, but never as much as now. The return of Xiandao Mansion's cultivators directly unleashed the internal struggles of the celestial court into the public eye, spreading throughout the entire city. Not just in this huge city, but wherever there were many living beings along the path of the great Tao. The news was received earlier. The celestial court plans to take action on the 3,000 great worlds. The living beings who could come to the path of the great Tao were not mere mortal spirits. They knew very well that the dispatch of so many immortal gods by the celestial court to descend would not be for a simple investigation. Old legends about the once annihilation of the 3,000 great worlds were also being unearthed, giving the cultivators on the path of the great Tao a more profound understanding of the celestial court. In the messages that followed, the 3,000 great worlds gradually got the news. Some great worlds were jubilant because their worlds indeed had evil demons, but more great worlds felt fear, always feeling that the arrival of the immortal gods would bring trouble to the world. Thousands of years later, the news also spread into the celestial spirit great world, causing all the sects to be shaken. They too felt that the arrival of the immortal gods signaled an impending catastrophe. Within the Taoist field of the beginningless, on a ridge, thousands of Wushiji disciples gathered. Wu Xie, dressed in a white robe, stood on the slope, everyone watching him. As the breeze blew, his robe fluttered, and the robe was emblazoned with a red sparrow, closely resembling the Wusher divine sparrow. Wu Xie said loudly, "Fellow disciples, I haven't experienced the struggle for the Son of Heaven, but based on the past, when immortal gods descend in great numbers, it's definitely not a good thing. Even if the immortal gods don't make mischief, there's inevitably a seed of calamity in the human world. If chaos arises, we Wusher must take the lead and defend the heavens and earth." As soon as these words were spoken, the Wushiji disciples on the mountain all echoed. Search * the Novelier. NET website on Google to access chapters of novels early and in the highest quality. The ones who came were not the entire Wusher, just a small group of disciples who had a good relationship with Wu Xie. Wu Xie thought this was a good opportunity. He wanted to accomplish a great deed, letting all living beings know who the true protector of heaven and earth was. And Zizai stood on a distant mountaintop, watching this scene, with a face full of gratification. The fourth-generation disciple Hai Yuan sighed. Thinking back to when he first joined Wusher, I never would have imagined he could grow to his current height. Not only is his cultivation level profound, but his prestige is also quite good. Being able to gather so many disciples based on his connections is indeed remarkable. And Zizai's lips curled up, saying, "It's far more than that. Nevertheless, he indeed exceeded my expectations." From initial caution to now, and Zizai held boundless expectations for Wu Xie. He had taught many disciples, but none could compare to Wu Xie. Unfortunately, Wu Xie just couldn't catch the ancestors' attention. Could it be that Wu Xie was too uninteresting? And Zizai often pondered this question, comparing Gu An's favorite disciple Su Han with Wu Xie. Su Han's advantage was his love for play, but precisely because of this love for play, Su Han's Dao practice had already been overshadowed by Wu Xie. If this was indeed the case, then Zizai really couldn't advise Wu Xie, because he believed that a love for play wasn't a good thing. Dao practice was most important. However, in front of Guan, he wouldn't dare to voice these thoughts. "Uncle Master, if the immortal gods truly come to the celestial spirit great world, to what extent should we intervene?" Hai Yuan looked at Zizai, hesitantly asking. The trend of events was like a torrent, unstoppable. The immortal gods had not yet arrived, but the atmosphere among various sects in the world had already become tense. They would wonder who the immortal gods were targeting and who would be affected. Would the dominant position of the Heavenly Spirit Tao Alliance face destabilization? They needed to prepare for all troubles, and also wait for the possible downfall of the Heavenly Spirit Tao Alliance. In worldly affairs, Wusher cannot rush to the forefront. It just needs to act at critical moments, otherwise its nature would change, and Zizai said meaningfully. He had lived many years and witnessed numerous catastrophes, having developed his understanding of the evolution of the world's grand trend. Hai Yuan pondered his words carefully. Meanwhile, Guan was in his courtyard reading a book. As the news of the immortal gods spread wildly, Xuantianyi surprisingly began writing stories about the immortal gods. To his knowledge, Xuantianyi had never interacted with the immortal gods, but precisely because of this he dared to pen the romantic tales of the immortal gods. The male and female protagonists turn love into hate, battling beyond the heavens, countless worlds annihilated. When only a sliver of strength remained in either of them, they looked at each other's weakened state and reminisced about the bits and pieces of the past, whereupon love rekindled. Absurd. But the details were well described, making Guan find it quite interesting. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know. Report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 856, Battle of Nine Extremes. It's quite lively outside. Shenzhen turned his head to Guan, who was reading, and said, "Besides Wu Xie, other disciples were gathering in different places, making similar calls. The number of disciples in Wusher now amounted to hundreds of thousands, not counting those out for training. With so many disciples, circles naturally formed based on the closeness of relationships. Wuxia could rally a group of disciples, and naturally, other disciples could do the same. Fighting within Wuxia was not forbidden. As long as it was healthy, without harming fellow disciples, external competition was allowed. Guan casually replied, "Let them mess around. They have yet to experience tribulations, treating calamities as a game." After tens of millions of years, most of the disciples within Wuxia had not experienced tribulations. Born on the nine-spirit continent, they had cultivated steadily until now. Although they spoke righteously about the arrival of the immortal gods, in reality, they only felt excitement, with no trace of worry. Challenging the immortal gods was something that filled them with fighting spirit. Shenzhen smiled and followed. "I can already foresee the scene of the immortal gods descending. Although it's tragic, the fate seems vague, as if it could change at any moment, which means you might intervene." Though she hadn't yet achieved innate golden immortal, her long-term research on the way of cause and effect made her better at deducing fate than an innate golden immortal. Her achievements were due to not only Gu An's Dao intense assistance, but also the power of the great cause and effect steal from the Emperor of Eternal Life. "We can't just let someone destroy our home, can we?" Guan replied softly. His answer surprised Shenzhen a bit. She felt Guan had changed. In the past, even if he had plans in mind, he wouldn't directly speak out like this. Now he was more assertive. This indicated that his strength had grown again. Shenzhen couldn't help but wonder if his frequent outings truly allowed him to gain insights from the red dust. Just then, Guan put down his book, looking towards the celestial vault. "What's wrong?" Shenzhen asked curiously. Guan replied, "A great world has started rebelling against the immortal gods, and it's intense." 9 Extremes Great World. Among the 3,000 great worlds, one ranked in the top 10 in heritage. When the immortal gods descended, they didn't stop them, allowing them to search the great world. But as more and more living beings were exterminated, they couldn't sit still, thus initiating the first battle between human and gods. Before this, in the great worlds where the immortal gods had been, even if there was resistance, it was minor and couldn't form a scale. But the 9 Extremes Great World was the first where all beings united in resistance. It must be said the 9 Extremes Great World was indeed powerful, with over 108 golden immortals, and even a hidden ancient Miaozhen Daoyuo immortal. Before this, the celestial gods dared not act recklessly, maintaining good relations with the various forces of the 9 Extremes Great World. But now they had become complete enemies. Guan saw that the head of the heavenly gods, Marshal of Heaven, made a move. Though this supreme immortal was also a Miaozhen Daoyuo immortal, his strength was formidable, completely overwhelming the Miaozhen Daoyuo immortal from the other side. And each strike hit the morale of the 9 Extremes Great World. This battle doomed the 9 Extremes Great World to failure, and its former glory would be no more. But with other beings from the 3,000 great worlds within, they would spread the word of this battle, encouraging other great worlds to unite against the immortal gods sooner. Hearing Gu An's words, Shenzhen immediately tried to deduce the situation, but unfortunately, her abilities weren't enough to calculate it. "Can you let me see?" Shenzhen asked curiously. With a wave of Gu An's hand, Shenzhen's pupils changed, displaying the situation of the 9 Extremes Great World. Her expression followed suit, with shock gradually climbing onto her face. Even with her cultivation level looking at it, the battle was incredible. The heritage of the 9 Extremes Great World was immense, the presence of the immortal gods was invincible, and those magical treasures larger than the heavens all stimulated her eyes. Guan did not comment on this battle, but silently watched with her. The battle lasted for many years. Even with the Miaozhen Daoyuo immortal suppressed, the beings of the 9 Extremes Great World did not give up their fighting spirit, still choosing to fight to the death. Search * the Nefire. @ website on Google to access chapters of novels early and in the highest quality, until the entire Great World fell into silence. The 9 Extremes Great World was dozens of times larger than the Celestial Spirit Great World, with an extremely vast number of living beings, but such a vast world turned into a human purgatory in less than a century. Some living beings were still alive but hid in the shadows, not daring to see the daylight. The presence of the roaming immortal gods appeared like evil demons in their eyes. In the void, Marshal of Heaven hovered above the Nine Extremes great world, looking down at the celestial Tao light layer above, watching as the light layer gradually dimmed, his brows furrowed. A celestial god approached him, asking in a low voice, "Marshal, are we really doing the right thing?" Even for the celestial gods who disregard all living beings, seeing so many beings die would cause unease in their hearts. Marshal of Heaven remained expressionless, not answering. He knew more than the celestial gods did, and because of this his emotions were even more turbulent inside. Yet he never showed it. Seeing he didn't want to answer, the celestial god could only retreat. After a while, Marshal of Heaven seemed to sense something, turning his head to see a figure looking at him from the end of the void. He immediately moved over, but when he arrived, the figure was already gone, as if it had never appeared. He turned to look again, finding that figure standing further away in the void, quietly watching him. He discovered his divine sense couldn't capture that figure. Clearly, the other was not truly present, likely a remnant of some great Tao. He no longer moved, instead standing and observing the figure, becoming more and more shocked as he thought of a specific existence. What's happening? How can he appear? Marshal of Heaven's expression became serious for the first time, his eyes filled with dread. Since the news of the impending arrival of the immortal gods spread, the Heavenly Spirit Tao Alliance began deploying beyond outer heaven, and the cultivators near the world gate grew in number. Due to the presence of the celestial spirit god, they dared not approach. On this day, the world gate lit up, causing the distant cultivators to become tense. Soon, Tai Immortal Monarch stepped out, causing the cultivators to breathe a sigh of relief. They had seen Tai Immortal Monarch before and knew this immortal god was on their side. The celestial spirit god stood, looking at Tai Immortal Monarch, not bothering with courtesy, and hurriedly asked, "What's the situation?" Tai Immortal Monarch's face looked grim, saying, "The celestial court has closed the heavenly ascension stairs leading to the 3,000 great worlds. I cannot return to the celestial court, but I have discovered that this time, it's Marshal of Heaven himself." Marshal of Heaven? The celestial spirit god's expression changed drastically. For the celestial gods, Marshal of Heaven was an existence of the highest order. They have never been to the interior of the celestial court, and in their eyes, Marshal of Heaven is no weaker than the celestial emperor. Such an existence came personally. The celestial spirit god felt distress for the celestial spirit great world again, but thinking of Guan, his mood calmed somewhat. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know. Report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 857. The Will of All Beings. I can confirm that this time, the action against the 3,000 great worlds is not the scheme of any particular entity, but the will of the entire celestial court. The situation is far worse than we anticipated. Tai Immortal Monarch said with a frown, his face looking very grim. Upon hearing this, the celestial spirit god became even more worried, because he knew that behind this action by the immortal gods was the will of the heavenly emperor, whose true intention was to annihilate Xianyuan human venerable and Tian Hao. The world gate returned to normal, and the cultivators watching from afar dared not approach, leaving only the two immortal gods in silence. For a long time, Tai Immortal Monarch spoke. "What we can do is defend the celestial spirit great world. Don't think too much about anything else. The more you think, the more chaotic your mind becomes." The celestial spirit god nodded, and then bowed to Tai Immortal Monarch. Tai Immortal Monarch gave him a deep look, then disappeared from the spot. The celestial spirit god sat back down and continued his cultivation, his desire to become stronger now unprecedentedly intense. The years continued to pass. The sensational war of the Nine Extremes great world eventually spread, reaching even into the celestial spirit great world, causing panic among all the sects in the world, but also conveying a certain power. Although the Nine Extremes great world was defeated, the bravery it exhibited shocked all living beings. How could the immortal gods expect the mortal spirits to quietly accept death? That was never possible. A seed of rebellion against the immortal gods took root, and began to sprout in the hearts of all beings. Great powers began to use their teachings to inspire all living beings to defend their own realms. The Heavenly Spirit Tao Alliance was one such example, starting to widely publicize the tragic situation of the Nine Extremes Great World, urging all beings to abandon fantasies and prepare for battle. Some questioned whether the Nine Extremes Great World truly harbored evil demons, but such voices were quickly drowned out. A long-standing peace lulled the celestial spirit Great World into a state of confidence. No sect fell into despair, not even the most cautious Heavenly Spirit Tao Alliance, which still harbored a hint of hope. 3 million years passed. The immortal gods had still not descended upon the celestial spirit Great World. The mass of living beings had already forgotten this shadow, yet the immortal cultivation realm remained tense. Led by the Great Thousand Worlds, they prepared to form a Great Thousand World Alliance to aid the Great World's suffering devastation. The Heavenly Spirit Tao Alliance also agreed to join, reasoning that it was better to fight far from the celestial spirit Great World than to have the enemy come knocking at their door. At noon in the mountain viewing pavilion, Guan and Nzizai sat facing each other inside the pavilion, while Hai Yuan stood behind Nzizai, body tensed, posture somewhat stiff. The Heavenly Spirit Tao Alliance came to test me. I told them outright that you are no longer in the celestial spirit Great World, and it's unknown when you'll return, to prevent them from placing all their hopes on you. And Nzizai said earnestly, Ancestor Master Wuxia is the greatest backing of the celestial spirit Great World. However, Ancestor Master Wuxia rarely shows himself. The sects of the world can't fathom Ancestor Master Wuxi's thoughts, so they dare not hope for his intervention. They had no choice but to visit Nzizai, hoping to get a definite answer from his mouth. Upon hearing that Ancestor Master Wuxia had already left, the sects began preparing for war in earnest. Guan was unaffected. He would act if he wished to act. Now the will of all living beings could no longer influence him. Ancestor, will the Wushiji disciples participate in the Great Thousand World Alliance? And Nzizai looked at Guan and asked softly. Guan spoke, Wushi's responsibility is to guard the celestial spirit Great World, not the 3,000 Great Worlds. Otherwise, this responsibility will grow ever larger, potentially leading to opposition with the celestial court. The more disciples there are, the more chaotic people's hearts become. Wuxia is too vast. Sometimes you too will find yourself dragged along by circumstances. And Nzizai nodded in deep agreement. In the past, he was not fond of Wuxia, but had to cultivate him as too many disciples petitioned for Wuxia. Guan glanced at Hai Yuan, standing behind Nzizai, and smiled. Why don't you sit? Why are you standing? As a fourth-generation disciple, Guan naturally remembered Hai Yuan, serving as Nzizai's right-hand man. His flaw was being too inflexible, treating people and matters the same, even maintaining conventional etiquette in front of him. Ancestor in fine standing, Hai Yuan answered awkwardly, his expression becoming embarrassed, not daring to meet Guan's gaze. Guan chuckled and didn't persuade him further. Then, Nzizai talked about the situation of the sects worldwide, worrying that some sects might take advantage of this calamity to strike at the Heavenly Spirit Tao Alliance, causing more disasters. Guan gave no response, avoiding revealing any destiny. Thereafter he only listened without speaking. Nzizai also tried to gauge his ancestor's attitude, but he couldn't discern any information from his ancestor's expression or gaze. An hour later, Nzizai stood up and left, with Hai Yuan following closely. Only when the two were far away did Hai Yuan finally relax. Guan did not leave the mountain viewing pavilion immediately. He beckoned with a hand, and the Wuxia divine sparrow flew over, landing on the table. At this moment, another person appeared. Second-generation disciple LV Xian. SE of the novel, Fire. Et website on Google to access chapters of novels early and in the highest quality. Not long ago, LV Xian had just achieved the rank of innate golden immortal, consolidating his reputation as a genius. Recently his fame in the dojo had surged. Master, I want to venture out, what do you think? LV Xian sat down boldly at the table and asked excitedly. He had been in seclusion previously, but after hearing about the fights in the Nine Extremes Great World, his entire fighting spirit was ignited, and he wanted to challenge the immortal gods. Guan looked at him and said, "This is not a child's play. If you die out there, I will not save you. The sharpness of the celestial court is something I must avoid unless it is unavoidable." Xian laughed. "Don't worry, I won't act recklessly. I will visit those ruined great thousand worlds, challenge the guardian heavenly gods, and rescue the suffering living beings. If you've thought it through, then go ahead." Guan replied casually. Xian was overjoyed, quickly thanked him, and then got up to leave. Xian had barely left when Shengtian and Jiangshi arrived. They also wanted to leave the celestial spirit great world to explore, and their reasons were much like Xian's. After a word of caution, Guan allowed them to go. Faced with the catastrophe brought about by the immortal gods, although most beings felt uneasy, those self-proclaimed outstanding cultivators saw it as an opportunity. Guan once again looked to the future, and found that the schemes targeting Wuxia were increasing. Those great thousand worlds ravaged by the immortal gods were being invaded by another force, the dark heavenly court. They guided the surviving beings to harbor hatred for the celestial court, expanding their own power. They would encounter Wuxiji disciples, and thus develop an interest in Wuxia, even alarming a dark heavenly court great power, whose cultivation level was not inferior to the Emperor Bone Profound Venerable. The great powers had yet to conceive thoughts of targeting Wuxia, but Guan had already foreseen the trajectory of events after the convergence of causality. Simultaneously, life expectancy predictions continuously popped up as his future enemies. Since Guan broke through, his karmic enemies had increasingly diminished, except recently they had grown. As he awaited visits from other disciples, Guan began searching for a suitable battlefield. He was preparing to harvest lifespans. The immortal gods, being immortal, couldn't grant him lifespans, but there were quite a few beings who, out of fear, pledged themselves to the immortal gods. Furthermore, the dark heavenly court would attract endless evil demons. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know. Report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 858. Are you an immortal? The world was dim, boundless dark clouds covering the sky, the earth barren, mountains shattered. Looking around, the ground was full of pits and hollows, no flowers or grass in sight. Everything seemed so desolate, so lifeless. On a land full of broken stones, two small figures were walking forward, their bodies swaying, as if they might collapse at any moment. Leading the way was a skinny young boy, appearing 12 or 13 years old, dressed in tattered clothes, filthy all over, hair like a bird's nest, barefoot, with blood-stained ankles that had long dried. Behind him was a girl of 7 or 8, ragged and dirty like the boy ahead. She held a withered flower in her hand, her head bowed, walking slowly, the distance between her and the boy constantly widening. The boy stopped, turned, and looked at his sister, who was already 10 zhang away from him, without speaking, just quietly watching her. He waited until the girl approached him before turning to continue forward. He walked like this, stopping and going, occasionally waiting for his sister, endlessly it seemed, while the world remained perpetually dim, indistinguishable between day and night, the path visible but with no sight of bright light. Suddenly, the boy's eyes brightened. He quickly walked forward, arriving at a puddle, kneeling directly beside it, supporting himself with his hands, and began drinking the water, not caring about its murkiness, nor the floating blood also, which did not catch his attention. Seeing the boy's actions, the little girl hurried her steps, stumbling to his side and kneeling down to drink with him. The siblings drank like wild animals, appearing so insignificant on this desolate land. Cough, cough. The girl suddenly sat on the ground, starting to cough violently. The boy raised his head to look at her, scolding, "Drink slower, it's just the two of us, enough for us to drink." After the girl stopped coughing, she whispered, "Sorry, brother." The boy sighed, ruffled her hair, motioned her to continue drinking. The girl lowered herself back down to drink, while the boy watched her, his heart filled with bitterness. He was from a wealthy family when he was young, eating and drinking whatever he wanted. Then in the year his sister was born, countless meteors from outer heaven crashed down, destroying the city he lived in. Only he and his sister survived by luck. He had raised her since then, even he finds it unbelievable. Recalling the past seemed like a lifetime ago, and looking at the future, his heart was filled with limitless confusion. He was close to not being able to hold on, not understanding the meaning of living on. He had no confidence to raise his sister to adulthood because he himself did not have confidence to live a few more years. Thinking like this, he sat on the ground, looking up at the dark sky. The blue sky in his memory seemed non-existent, as if it was all in his imagination. The boy suddenly felt very tired. As if all the strength in his body had been drained, he slowly lay down, his body forming a big character. At this moment, the endless dark clouds above began to churn, rapidly forming a spectacular vortex, growing ever larger, as if to swallow the entire world. The boy widened his eyes, suspecting he was seeing things, so he rubbed his eyes, looked again. The vortex of dark clouds had grown larger. Even lightning appeared, but there was no sound, like a phantom scene. He quickly sat up, patting his sister's back, motioning her to look up. The little girl looked up, immediately widening her eyes, her small mouth instinctively opening, the murky water flowing down, wetting her clothes. The siblings stared dumbly at the sky, helpless. Soon, a surge of black mist poured out from the cloud vortex, spreading over the entire world, oppressing them immensely. Gradually, the boy heard a buzzing sound. He became alert, hurriedly dragging his sister toward a nearby giant rock. The siblings hid behind the boulder, the girl covering her mouth, while the boy cautiously peeked out. His pupils suddenly dilated. It turned out it wasn't black mist, but horrifying black evil demons. The nearest demon to him flying like a mountain, scaring him into quickly pulling back, holding his sister tightly. Boom! A gust of wind roared by, stones flying wildly. The boulder behind them started to tremble, making them even more nervous and afraid. Yet even so, they didn't make a sound. A dark shadow swept past. The boy slightly raised his head, saw a black evil demon with wings flying toward the horizon, followed by others flying over their heads. The demons were diverse, some like humans, some like monsters, each gigantic, emitting a violent bloody scent. The boy was terribly frightened and lowered his head again, not daring to look. The sound of the demons flying was so noisy, growing louder, until it was deafening. Why? Why were we born in such a world? Why are we alive? Father, you said there is the heavenly Tao, and there are immortals in the heavens. If there really are gods, why don't they protect us? Father, besides us, are there really other people in this world? The boy cried out in his heart. He was only 13, no matter how strong he appeared to be. Facing the evil demons covering the sky, he was also afraid and despaired. He pressed down on his sister's head tightly, afraid she would see the terrifying scene above. Only, he felt a gust coming from the front, though the demons were coming from behind. How could there be wind from the front? Realizing something, his body started to shake violently. Father, I'm scared. The boy gritted his teeth tightly, but couldn't control his fear and uttered these 4 words. Suddenly, the wind from the front disappeared. The clamor of the world also abruptly ceased, the boy even more nervous, not daring to raise his head. After a long while he mustered his courage, looked up, and when he saw the scene ahead, he suddenly looked up, eyes wide open, with an expression of incredulity. In front of him stood a man in black, standing against the wind, black flames dispersing across the sky. He even saw the severed limbs of demons gradually turning to ashes. Rays of sunlight pierced through the dark clouds, illuminating the earth. One ray brushing across the boulder they hid by, following and sweeping over the man in black, extending to the horizon. The boy gazed dumbly at the back of the man in black, instinctively murmuring, "Father." The girl heard his words, also looking up, equally startled by the man in black. "Boy, I'm not your father." A gentle voice came. The man in black turned his head to look at them, and his appearance was also astonishing to the siblings. So handsome, so good-looking. The siblings looked at the smile on Guan's face. Their fear and unease receded like the tide. Are you an immortal?" the boy asked tremblingly. "Sir, the Nelfer Net website on Google to access chapters of novels early and in the highest quality. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know. Report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 859. Can't survive even one move. I am not an immortal. I am just like you, a human. Guan turned back to look at the celestial vault and replied, as warnings about seizing lifespan continued to flash before his eyes. The evil demons in this world seem innumerable, but actually, most are mere avatars, feigning an overwhelming momentum to terrify all living beings. The boy and the young girl heard Guan's response, and their tension dissipated, replaced by great joy. Besides them, there were other living people, and seemingly very powerful ones. Big brother, what's happening with those guys in the sky? The boy mustered the courage to ask. Although surprised by Guan's appearance, he had not witnessed Guan in action, so he was filled with curiosity and confusion. Guan turned to look at them. Although the siblings appeared pitiful and miserable, he felt little sympathy, having seen beings far worse off while overseeing the heavens. S.E. of the Novel Fire. NE*T website on Google to access chapters of novels early and in the highest quality. They are being expelled. This land will soon be restored to its former state. Head north, and you can meet others. Everything will get better. Guan replied. Within less than 10 years, this world's beings had faced a decimation of 99%, and the survivors harbored hatred toward the immortal gods, passing down tales of their suffering to instill a disdain for the immortals in future generations. He wouldn't help all beings uncover the truth. No matter the case, their plight was indeed caused by immortals. With those words, Guan walked away in another direction. Big brother, was it you who saved us just now? The boy hurriedly took 2 steps forward, loudly asking, his gaze filled with tension and anticipation directed at Guan. Guan paused without turning back, said, Yes, it was me. What of it? I can't take you with me. There are still many evil demons waiting for me to vanquish. Upon hearing this, the boy grew excited, immediately kneeling and kowtowing to Guan. The young girl followed suit, mimicking her brother. With a wave of his right hand, Guan dropped 2 secret technique manuals in front of the boy. Hearing the sound, the boy looked up, but Guan's figure had vanished. He cautiously picked up the 2 manuals before him. He was not very literate, but had heard childhood tales of books containing the path to immortality. He tucked the manuals into his chest, his eyes brimming with longing. The clouds in the sky began to disperse, sunlight bathed the land, symbolizing the arrival of light. Guan's image was etched in the boy's mind, who silently vowed that he would become a hero like that big brother. Oh no, I forgot to ask his name. The boy quickly got up and began to shout for the big brother. But no matter how he called, there was no response. At dusk, Guan walked along the mountain path towards his courtyard, not having fully eradicated the evil demons of one world today. He planned to proceed slowly to avoid drawing the attention of the dark heavenly court. These days, countless large worlds and little worlds suffered. Places where celestial Tao destiny was weakened were filled with bloodshed and savagery. Not just the dark heavenly court and immortal gods wreaked havoc. Many local demon cultivators and demons took the opportunity to fulfill their desires, and even ghosts and gods from the underworld descended to the human world, with battles erupting every moment. The 3,000 Great Worlds is merely a collective term. Beneath each large world lay countless little worlds, places where even the Mahayana realm is difficult to arise, outnumbering the stars. Guan intended to slowly harvest lifespans, seizing this rare opportunity to its fullest. If he encountered beings that evoked his compassion, he would not hesitate to leave them with a chance, enabling them to grow stronger independently. Overall, today's gains put Guan in a good mood. He walked along while searching for his next target, able to restore that large world to peace within 5 days, allowing him to choose his next target in advance. Notably, he saw Liya. Liya, who had been cultivating on the path of the great Tao, away from this turmoil, couldn't restrain himself after hearing about the immortal god's chaos, heading to the great thousand world to rescue all living beings. Knowing his strength was insufficient against immortal gods, he chose to save shattered large worlds, a decision that also altered his fate. Guan foresaw that Liya's future would reach greater heights, even paving his own path. Senior brother, I underestimated you. Guan smiled, thinking to himself that while Liya had abundant opportunities, without his backing, Liya would have died long ago, so he viewed Liya's limits as far below Ji Xiaoyu's. Yet, facing the immortal's calamity, Leah treaded a stronger path, earning his fresh respect. He genuinely felt happy for Leah. He was so stubborn, unwilling to become his full-fledged subordinate, and now finally had hope. A more joyous Guan returned to the courtyard, where an Xian, rare to exit seclusion, was standing by the artifact refining cauldron, chatting with Shenzhen. Seeing Guan, she immediately approached. "Master, I recently had some insights, could you evaluate them?" An Xian asked expectantly. For tens of millions of years, she had almost always been in seclusion, single-mindedly pursuing the Tao. Her immortal emperor's eye became increasingly powerful, but she always felt inadequately strong, pushing ever onward. Guan replied, "Come here early tomorrow. I will take you out, you will gain something from travel." An Xian agreed without questioning further, bowed, and turned to leave. Guan eyed her with a gaze full of gratification. Passing on the immortal emperor's eye to an Xian was indeed right. Her immortal emperor's eye would surely achieve greatness, and her future attainment as a Daoyuo immortal was truly feasible, provided she endured the lengthy accumulation. Guan went inside, took out profound celestial intense book for reading, consciously shifting his attention away from the suffering of all living beings. The moon set, the sun rose, heralding a new day. An Xian arrived early at the courtyard to wait, and upon seeing her, Su Han, who came to find Guan, instantly became nervous. He highly respected Nzizai and naturally felt awe towards Nzizai's master. Moreover, an Xian stood there impassively, radiating an oppressive presence that instinctively made him tense. Curiosity filled him, wondering what cultivation level this legendary second-generation chief disciple had achieved. Guan pushed the door open, nodded at an Xian, then led her out of the courtyard. Su Han hastily bowed but dared not speak up, feeling uneasy in Nzin's presence. After Guan and an Xian departed, Su Han finally exhaled and turned to Shenzhen, curiously asking, "Grandmaster Shen, what are Grandmaster and Senior going to do?" Shenzhen glanced at him and said, "Why not ask yourself? Aren't you in good terms with your Grandmaster?" Su Han awkwardly smiled. "Isn't Seniorin right there? Seeing her makes me nervous." Shenzhen chuckled and said nothing further. "Grandmaster Shen, what realm is Seniorin in? Do you know?" Su Han pursued. Casually, Shenzhen responded, "I don't know. I only know your eldest brother couldn't withstand a single move from her. You might want to ask him yourself." "Not withstand a single move?" Su Han froze, realizing how vast the gap in cultivation levels must be. "If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc. please let us know report so we can fix it as soon as possible." Chapter 860. Li Ya's Destiny. Guan walked through the mountains and forests with an Xian, who followed behind without asking, her eyes full of anticipation. Suddenly, the environment before Nzin's eyes changed abruptly. She found herself in a vast heaven and earth, walking with her master along a cliff. In the celestial vault hung remnants of clouds, red twilight reflecting on the sky, the undulating mountains and earth majestic and magnificent, with huge bones scattered all over the landscape. It was not the first time she experienced her master's Tungnua step technique, but she was shocked every time. She couldn't see through it at all, couldn't sense any signs, which made her sigh in her heart about the gap between herself and her master. Even with the immortal emperor's eye, she couldn't see through her master's divine skills. "Next, you and I will transform into nameless cultivators to eradicate the evil ways of this realm. I permit you to use the immortal emperor's eye." Guan walked ahead speaking. Search * the novel F. Ire. Et website on Google to access chapters of novels early and in the highest quality. Upon hearing this, Nzin's eyes brightened. Her immortal emperor's eye could only be used during sparring with Wushiji disciples. But those sparrings were always stopped quickly. She had never felt the limits of the immortal emperor's eye. "Master, where is this place?" An Xian quickened her pace, came alongside Guan, and asked softly. Her gaze turned to the distance, seeing enormous stars floating at the horizon, as if they might collide with this heaven and earth at any moment, creating a strong visual impact. "This is a great thousand world once ravaged by immortal gods. I came yesterday, but haven't completely cleared the evil demons of this realm yet," Guan replied. then put forth a few requirements, forbidding an Xian from using the Tao treasure, preferably only using the immortal emperor's eye to solve enemies. Though constrained, Enzin's fighting spirit rose. To fight using only the immortal emperor's eye? Just thinking about it made her somewhat impatient. And so, Guan led an Xian to continue plundering lifespans, leaving the fighting to an Xian. But when she was about to slay the enemy, he quietly intervened, personally finishing the enemy. His mana was very concealed. Even Enzin's immortal emperor's eye couldn't capture it, making her think she was truly the one who slew the evil demon. It wasn't until dusk that Guan took an Xian back to Wushi. The next morning, he wandered with an Xian inside the Taoist field of the beginningless, picking mature medicinal herbs. No matter how many millions of years passed, the master still maintained such habits, making an Xian full of admiration in her heart. As her cultivation level grew stronger, let alone planting or picking medicinal herbs, she even found managing disciples troublesome, fully delegating to her apprentices. She felt the gap between herself and her master was not only in cultivation level, but also in mentality. This unwavering Tao heart was what she truly should pursue. After picking the herbs, Guan then leisurely took an Xian to that great world. The following days were essentially like this, going out during the day to slay demons and return by evening. Many Wushiji disciples glimpsed their figures, though with much speculation, none could guess what they actually did. On a moonlit night, the moon was bright with sparse stars, meteors occasionally streaked across the sky. On a hillside, Leah sat before a bonfire, roasting a huge pig leg, with dozens of boys and girls squatting nearby, all drooling as they watched the roasted pig leg. They didn't dare to speak, fearing to disrupt this beautiful scene. Leah, watching their expressions, only felt amused. He coughed softly, saying, "Hurry up and cultivate, don't waste time. What if we encounter demons tomorrow, and I die under their claws? What will you do?" Upon hearing this, the boys and girls scattered, each sitting cross-legged to cultivate, although their eyes occasionally glancing at the roasted pig leg. They were really hungry. It had been a long time since they smelled such a meat fragrance. Leah also felt sour in his heart. He felt he was so fortunate, born in the peaceful era of the celestial spirit great world. Even when encountering a celestial calamity, there was junior brother Gu to avert disaster. Yet when looking at the children of this realm, whose parents were all gone, living in fear and peril, even if he rescued them, he could only protect them for a moment, not a lifetime. He couldn't always shelter these children because he still had to save more lives. He turned his eyes to the bonfire, seeing his own face within the flames. Leah, Leah, you traversed the heavens, experiencing countless hardships. You've been carefree and at ease, but what do you really seek? At least junior brother Gu always protects his world, while you wander everywhere. What exactly do you want? Leah asked himself in his heart. This was a question he often pondered upon entering. Seeing the devastating hardships brought upon the world by immortal gods, yet unable to stop it, unable to even tell the suffering masses the truth, he felt he was thinking and worrying about too much. Like a headless fly, saving the sufferers but unable to change the phenomenon. There would always be people suffering. Even though he kept doing this, he lacked any influence relative to the vast heavenly Tao. Leah lost in thought, reminiscing about his past life. The more he pondered, the colder his heart felt. For a long time, a timid voice reached him. "Senior, the meat is charred." Leah snapped back to reality, focused his sight, and indeed the pig leg was charred. He immediately drew his sword, starting to cut the roasted meat for the children. The children took the roasted meat, disregarding the heat, and began to eat it. Suddenly, sounds of gasping for cool air rose one after another. Leah watched amusedly, and for some reason he suddenly wanted to establish a sect, to take these lone children to save more people. One person's strength was limited, but what if more people aided? These children would carry hatred throughout their lives. Without his guidance, perhaps they would embark on a path of irreversible destruction. No, that can't be right. Why must it be a sect? Leah thought of the Taoist emperor and primordial Tao emperor on the path of the great Tao. If all Taoist emperors united, what kind of power would that be? Perhaps not necessarily weaker than the celestial court. He could take disciples but not establish sect rules. He wished to gather like-minded individuals. If so, then what would his principles of journeying through the world and cultivation philosophy be? Liya fell into deep thought once again. Unbeknownst to him, on a distant mountaintop were two people watching him. Precisely Guan and an Xian. An Xian, with the immortal emperor's eye open, was observing Liya's destiny. She could clearly see the changes in Liya's destiny, which surprised her. Master, what kind of opportunity has elder Liya gained? An Xian couldn't help but ask. Guan looked at Liya from afar, chuckling. No opportunity, but his state of mind has had a breakthrough. He'll soon walk a new path. In the dark, cause and effect will resonate, influencing his destiny. And Zin's immortal emperors, I could see things even innate golden immortal found hard to capture, like the destiny on Liya. This destiny was not postnatal fortune. It could grow with one's cultivation level and momentum. It was innate original destiny, difficult to capture, representing a person's limit, also known as celestial mandate. Upon hearing Guan's words, an Xian seemed to have an epiphany and also fell into contemplation. Guan, looking at Liya, was similarly contemplating his own path. The path of a saint was certainly not fixed. Everyone should have their own path to sainthood. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know. Report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 861. 1 quadrillion years. In the blink of an eye, 100 years passed, vanishing swiftly. Guan didn't slay demons and exorcise spirits with an Xian every day, but he still ventured out dozens of times each year, rapidly increasing his lifespan. Until this day, a series of prompts appeared before his eyes. Your lifespan has broken through 100 quintillion years for the first time, beginning a random upgrade of the lifespan function. Your lifespan projection function has been upgraded. Lifespan projection upgrade successful. Lifespan projection. You can consume lifespan to project the Great Tao, manifesting 3,000 projection bodies to visit different Tao worlds. Before the projection, you can only choose one Tao to pursue. The projection body cannot be deduced, and you cannot obtain memories from the projection body, but can gain their insights on the Great Tao. The Tao projection is no longer restricted within the heavenly Tao, and can transcend time and space. 100 quintillion years, that's 100 billion years, 1 million trillion years, 100 quadrillion years. This already surpasses Guan's lifespan from his last breakthrough, making him secretly lament that taking lives yields much more lifespan. CTH Novelfire. Net website on Google to access chapters of novels early and in the highest quality. It's still not enough. He feels the lifespan should increase by another digit to have hope of a breakthrough, for he already feels nearly invincible. A strength beyond the Supreme Emperor of ultimate merging Tao. A realm he cannot yet imagine. Breaking through the Great Realm is bound to be a qualitative change, far from just a simple enhancement of cultivation level. Seeing the new lifespan projection, Guan was interested. Simply put, it expanded the scope of lifespan projection, from within the heavenly Tao to outside it, and can project into the past and future. The specific scope is not yet known. Guan decided to try the lifespan projection after returning. He stopped thinking about the lifespan projection, and turned his gaze toward the end of the world, where an unparalleled battle was taking place, with an Xian as one of the combatants. The celestial dome revealed a pair of giant purple eyes, overlooking the world, causing this space to fall into some sort of restriction, within which the battle did not affect the heavens and earth. Fighting against an Xian was an innate golden immortal, frantically attacking. Upon closer inspection, an Xian was flying swiftly, and although her opponent showed great divine skills, they couldn't hit her. The display of divine skills was spectacular, yet they never managed to touch an Xian. The innate golden immortal had already fallen into Zin's illusion realm of the immortal emperor's eye, unable to perceive this, still thinking an Xian was right in front of him. He saw the hope of victory, his fighting spirit soaring higher. However, an Xian wasn't in front of him but had been following behind him, coldly watching him squander mana. Guan nodded approvingly, satisfied with Zin's performance. Zin's suppressive power at the same realm grew stronger in recent years. Over the past century, Her use of the immortal emperor's eye greatly improved. In Gu An's eyes, Enzin's future continues to unfold, her powerful figure constantly appearing. Someday, she will surely become a renowned great power in the heavenly Tao. Seemingly sensing the right moment, the giant purple eyes on the celestial dome suddenly squinted, as did an Xian, her eyes bursting with a strange purple light, making everything within the barrier turn illusory. The attacking innate golden immortal suddenly stopped. Figure after figure flew out of Enzin's eyes, all her figure, holding a treasure sword, leaping forward, one sword slicing through the innate golden immortal's body, followed closely by others. In an instant, 10,000 swords swept across, the innate golden immortal's body covered in countless cracks, and mana inside seeped out like mist, spreading around. In less than 5 breaths' time, this innate golden immortal turned to ashes and scattered away. Guan had long seen Enzin's method of taking down enemies with the illusion realm of the immortal emperor's eye, utilizing the paths of cause and effect, and fate, making it unavoidable. You successfully seized 3,594,261,102 years of lifespan from the soulless elder, late stage of innate golden immortal realm. As before Enzin's opponent could die, Guan would quietly intervene, and until now, an Xian hasn't noticed anything amiss. An Xian raised a hand to catch the soulless elder's storage pouch and magical treasure, then turned to fly toward Guan. She approached Guan, handing over the 2 items, and he waved, storing the storage pouch and magical treasure into his sleeve, then pointed to discuss the previous battle. An Xian listened attentively. During this century, her rapid advancement in strength could not have been achieved without Gu An's teaching and guidance. Now her mentality had shifted, no longer confined to the celestial spirit great world. She began to truly resemble a great power cultivator. After a while, Guan led her back to the celestial spirit great world. After they left, the restriction ahead dissipated. A strong wind surged from within, howling across the land, declaring the fierce battle that once erupted. Under the dazzling starry sky, clouds surged endlessly, accompanied by a graceful melody from a zither. Following the sound of the zither, there was an ancient tree standing above the sea of clouds, with a white-robed man playing beneath it. His hair was white as snow, and blue feathers on his robe made his celestial aura unmistakable. A figure emerged through the clouds. It was a fairy in a white dress, wearing a silver jade phoenix crown and a light veil covering her face. Her exposed brows and eyes were exquisite and beautiful, her gaze as clear as the purest gems in the world. Taishang, after so many years, why have you returned to this tree again? Have you started to feel uneasy about your actions? The fairy in white skirt approached the tree and asked softly. This zither-playing white-robed man was the Heavenly Emperor. Facing her inquiry, the Heavenly Emperor did not get angry. He raised his eyes to look at her, smiling, and said, "And you, 9 Heavens Immortal Emperor, why have you come here to find me? Are you worried about the future of the celestial extreme 9 Heavens?" The 9 Heavens Immortal Emperor's expression remained unchanged as she replied, "Indeed am uneasy. I don't understand why you sealed the celestial extreme 9 Heavens. Have you really changed?" The Heavenly Emperor paused his actions, looked at the 9 Heavens Immortal Emperor, and replied, "Sister, you and I are no longer the Taoist children we were back then. I am the Son of Heaven, wielding power over the celestial court. I cannot overlook the threat of the celestial extreme 9 Heavens due to personal feelings. After you accepted Emperor Changyu, he ventured into the dark heavenly court. Over these years, the dark heavenly court has swiftly infiltrated the heavenly Taoist domain. I can sense their presence within it, so I must investigate thoroughly. If there are no issues with the celestial extreme 9 Heavens, naturally, I won't cause trouble. What about the 3,000 great worlds then? To plot against the Son of Heaven, you sacrificed so many living beings. You must have noticed, with so many chaos evil demons and underworld forces taking advantage of the situation. Yet your heavenly soldiers and generals never halted. If the celestial court truly has a mortal divine dark, I cannot help but suspect you." After saying this, the turbulent clouds froze momentarily, and the Heavenly Emperor's face turned cold, his gaze on the 9 Heavens Immortal Emperor filled with pressure, dimming even the bright starlit river above. Their gazes locked. The nine heavens' immortal emperor remained unflinching. After a while, the heavenly emperor withdrew his gaze, resumed playing the zither, and said, "Go back. You cannot change my will. Do not force me to cut off our brotherhood." The nine heavens' immortal emperor looked at him deeply, saying, "Brother, have you ever wondered why the emperor of heaven entrusted you with such power? And after that, where is he? Is he watching you? If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know. Report so we can fix it as soon as possible." Chapter 862. True Dragon's Great Achievement. Hearing the words of the nine heavens' immortal emperor, the heavenly emperor furrowed his brows, anger igniting in his eyes. He slowly stood up, his terrifying aura causing the sea of clouds to begin to sink, and the ancient tree behind him to quiver violently. The nine heavens' immortal emperor showed no fear, staring directly at the heavenly emperor. "Do you think I acquired this great power by kneeling, like a dog begging him?" The heavenly emperor asked coldly, his tone full of sarcasm, a stark contrast to his previous demeanor. At these words, the nine heavens' immortal emperor also furrowed her brows. She had always been curious about how the heavenly emperor obtained such power. Although his contributions in the war with the dark heavenly court were significant, they weren't unprecedented. It wasn't just her. Many immortal gods privately discussed this matter. Unfortunately, no immortal knew the truth. As the heavenly emperor's aura erupted, golden flames gradually appeared around him, transforming into a true dragon. This was an incredibly massive golden dragon, capable of swallowing the sun, moon, and stars. The ancient tree was smaller than a dragon scale in its presence. Looking at this dragon, the nine heavens' immortal emperor's expression finally changed. She gazed up at the golden dragon in disbelief. The Novel Fire. Any *T website on Google to access chapters of novels early and in the highest quality. Nine heavens' true dragon she attained. How is it possible? The nine heavens' immortal emperor murmured, her voice trembling. The heavenly emperor slightly raised his chin and said, "Nine heavens' immortal emperor, although we share a common sect, I have lived far more years than you can imagine. You and I are merely a cause and effect of one lifetime. The power of the heavenly court is rightfully mine. I can control everything. You don't understand how the heavens appear in my eyes. The dark heavenly court, the underworld, they're just my prey. Return. Do not leave the celestial extreme nine heavens until this strife is over, or I will personally destroy the celestial extreme nine heavens." By the end of his words, the heavenly emperor's tone became exceedingly forceful. The nine heavens' immortal emperor was about to speak when the enormous golden dragon suddenly roared at her, the dragon's roar deafening. The terrifying pressure surged toward the nine heavens' immortal emperor, pressing her down through the sea of clouds, falling into the darkness. She looked at the lofty heavenly emperor, her eyes filled with fear and confusion. The heavenly emperor stood upon the sea of clouds, gazing down as she disappeared into the darkness below. When the sea of clouds reformed, the golden dragon behind him dissipated, and his aura followed in withdrawal, his white hair slowly settling down. "Humph." The heavenly emperor snorted coldly, clearly extremely displeased with the attitude of the nine heavens' immortal emperor. He raised his right hand, small points of silver light emerged from his palm, countless in number. On a closer look, these silver lights were reflections of various worlds, one piece of silver light near the edge gradually darkening. "Dark heavenly court, I must see who supports you from behind." The heavenly emperor murmured to himself, his tone filled with disdain. His gaze suddenly focused on a point of silver light, his pupils reflecting a silhouette, causing him to raise an eyebrow. "Oh, this variable is, at dusk, in the Taoist field of the beginningless." On the mountaintop, Guan meditated at the edge of the cliff, standing against the wind. He slowly opened his eyes. He had just performed a lifespan projection, requiring 100 million years of lifespan, far exceeding the amount before the upgrade. However, the insights he gained from the Great Tao also surpassed those from before. He didn't know the experiences of the projected self, but the insights gained benefited him greatly. He looked up at the 3,000 great worlds, detecting signs of survival from a portion of the projected selves. More of the projected selves were in the past and the future. all elusive without any causal connections, unless the realm reached the same height as his. Otherwise, it's hard to notice them. Still not working. Could it be that taking the path of the 3,000 great Tao is wrong? The way of the saints is the ultimate of one Tao. To break through the limit, should I cultivate other Taos? Guan pondered. Although he still could not find the signs of becoming a saint, such insights did enhance his Tao intent. He never rushed to become a saint. Even if he ultimately failed to comprehend, he could forcefully break through using lifespan evolution. However, during the years of accumulation, he preferred to strive on his own. Sometimes, without striving a bit, one doesn't know the benefits of giving up. Guan humorously remarked to himself. He did not stand up, just sat at the edge of the cliff. As night descended, the night sky of the celestial spirit great world was resplendent with stars, a galaxy hanging upside down, so beautiful. All living beings looked up, thinking that beyond the heavens was a more vast, magnificent scene. Yet, in reality, most of the universe beyond was shrouded in darkness, devoid of light. Moonsets, sunrises. A new day came. Guan stood up, preparing to stroll inside the dojo, rest for a few days before leading an Xian to other great worlds. Time flowed endlessly, whether the beings were in suffering or in peace. All couldn't stop the passing of time. The immortals and gods were still sweeping through the 3,000 great worlds. The celestial Tao light layer of the 3,000 great worlds slowly weakened, symbolizing the hearts of all living beings drifting away from the celestial court. Yet the heavenly court immortals seemed indifferent. Walking on the wasteland, Leah gazed at the 3 blazing suns at the horizon, lamenting the cruelty of the celestial court. Behind him followed tens of thousands of disciples, all of whom were saved and willing to follow him. Leah would teach them methods of cultivating immortality, lead them to save more people. If anyone wished to leave him, he wouldn't stop them. Fortunately, since he started this, no disciple was willing to leave him. Although Leah hadn't yet found his path, the cohesion of the disciples along the journey provided him with deep insights. Perhaps, if he continued this path, he would eventually discover what he sought. A man in a green robe approached, coming to Leah's side, frowning as he asked, "Master, are we really going to challenge those 3 golden crows? It's said that the golden crows are divine beasts of the heavenly court. Could there be immortals behind them?" Leah's expression remained calm as he softly replied, "Rest assured, the immortal gods have long left this realm. These golden crows carry no destiny of the heavenly court." With his current cultivation level, he could discern who was a heavenly court immortal. The 3 golden crows dwelling in the scorching suns didn't belong to the heavenly court. They carried a chill that made him uncomfortable. Even as they burned with fearful flames, he felt cold. Leah felt that this catastrophe in the 3,000 great worlds concealed even greater secrets. Perhaps it wasn't just the immortal gods ravaging the human world. Other existences might be involved. Hearing Leah's answer, the man in the green robe breathed a sigh of relief. As long as they didn't face the immortal gods, there was still hope. He continued to ask, "Master, do you have confidence in dealing with them?" Leah's lips curled into a smile as he said, "Disciple, when has your master ever lacked confidence? Perhaps I cannot stop the heavenly court, but destroying these beasts is certainly not difficult." As he spoke, he exhibited immense self-confidence, his spirit soaring, causing the man in the green robe to look upon him with admiration. From behind, the disciples also heard Leah's words, and the way they looked at Leah was filled with fervor. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know. Report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 863. The most feared person. It was noon, and the sun was shining brightly. Beside the fields, a group of village children gathered to listen to Guan's storytelling. After Guan finished speaking, a young boy impatiently asked, "Hui shot the suns, but where did those suns come from? The story didn't make it clear." The others also looked at Guan, who smiled and said, "It is said they were born of the celestial emperor Dijun and Shihi. They are responsible for bringing daylight to the human world in turns, but occasionally they all appear together, causing calamities to the human world." Another girl asked, "After Hui shot the golden crows, would the celestial emperor seek revenge on him?" The other village children started speaking all at once, noisy and bustling. Guan was not annoyed, only amused. He had told such mythological tales elsewhere, but it was the first time village children asked such questions. Elsewhere, children would only marvel and revere Hou-Yi's strength. This village was truly a fortuitous place. While an Exian was still battling foes on the other side of the world, Guan patiently answered the children's questions, guiding them to think rather than giving absolute answers. Millions of years later, these children would become the dominant power holders of this great thousand world. They transformed the heavens and earth and mastered destiny, at least within this great thousand world. Even if Guan and an Exian had not come, they could still break through the darkness and chaos to bring light to the human world. Guan did not intend to form any ties with them. He was just somewhat bored and came to pass the time. If the two of them had not come to this realm, these village children would have lost their homes and loved ones, living forever in the shadow of hatred. The story of Hou-Yi shooting the suns was told, because Liya was challenging 3 golden crows from the dark heavenly court. Sir the Nellfire. NT website on Google to access chapters of novels early and in the highest quality. It was a struggle, but under the gaze of many disciples, he could only grit his teeth and persevere. Guan had no intention of intervening. Although the battle would be brutal, Liya would win, and even make a breakthrough in Sword Dao. Liya truly lived a brilliant life, making Guan both empathetic and impressed. An hour later, Guan stood up and left under the reluctant gazes of the village children. Before leaving, he left behind a basic technique to help them embark on the cultivation path sooner. Even though it was just a basic technique, it made their future brighter and more accomplished. When they stood atop this great thousand world, they would seek Guan, but unfortunately, childhood memories were too vague, even if they used cause and effect deduction to no avail. After a while, Guan took an Exian back to the Taoist field of the beginningless. As the master and disciple walked along the mountain path, an Exian began describing her feelings about today's battle. She was in good spirits, able to sense her own progress. They walked slowly, and the Taoist field of the beginningless was vast. By the time dusk had fallen, they still had not returned to the main peak. At this moment, they encountered 2 disciples approaching from the woods ahead. It was Sin and Su-Han. Sin had been roaming for tens of millions of years and recently returned. Su-Han had long heard of his tales and visited him as soon as he returned. They hit it off quickly. Today, Sin challenged the Blood Prison Great Saint, ending in a draw. He felt dissatisfied, while Su-Han comforted him. Seeing Guan and an Exian, they hurriedly bowed in greeting. Having been with Guan for a long time, an Exian also liked to hide her aura, so even when Sin and Su-Han entered the woods, they did not perceive their presence. Guan passed by them without speaking, and an Exian did the same. Sin tilted his head and watched Zin's retreating figure, his eyes filled with confusion. Why does it feel like the senior sister has grown even stronger? He had roamed many great worlds with numerous opportunities, yet upon returning to the beginningless, he felt his status had not changed at all. People he couldn't defeat in the past he still couldn't defeat now. He even doubted whether he should have left in the first place. Seeing an Exian again, Sin discovered an eerie pressure emanating from her, inexplicably frightening him, but he couldn't figure out why. Guan, with his back to Sin, was satisfied with Sin's perception. Sin's father was the Emperor of Eternal Life, who possessed the immortal Emperor's Eye. Although Sin hadn't inherited this, he had an unusually high perception power towards it. Guan planned to teach Sin how to cultivate the immortal Emperor's Eye. However, he still needed to consider how to guide the Blood Prison Great Saint. He couldn't allow his steed to lose to his young disciple. After Guan and an Exian walked away, Su-Han couldn't help but ask, "Uncle Master, you and Master Senior are of the same generation. Are you really afraid of her?" Sin, still maintaining a youthful appearance, cleared his throat and said, "I respect her, but to be honest, I am indeed very afraid of her. In fact, I would say she is the one I fear the most in the dojo." Su-Han discovered that many highly esteemed disciples feared an Exian, a question he had always wanted to ask about. Why? Is she fierce? She isn't fierce, but she is Master's most cherished disciple, like a daughter. She once held the highest authority in the beginningless, and years ago, The second-generation disciples frequently sparred, and she was the strongest, unshakable. Sin's answer filled Suhan with reverence for an Exian. He knew an Exian was strong, but he hadn't realized none among the second-generation disciples could rival her. Recalling the Blood Prison Great Saint's performance within the barrier today, he shivered. Such a terrifying existence was no match for Master Senior? How terrifying must her talent be? On the other side, an Exian overheard their conversation, a smile tugging at her lips. She looked at Guan and asked, "Master, could this Suhan really be Senior Brother Su?" She remembered Guan once had a disciple named Suhan, the only one to die an untimely death, and Zhenqin's lifelong obsession. What a coincidence it would be if this Suhan happened to join under Zhenqin's wing, and even gained paternal favor. Facing an Exian, Guan did not hide the truth, saying, "It is indeed him, but I don't plan to let him and Qiner know the truth just yet. When they achieve enlightenment, all confusion will naturally unravel, and by then, they will be at peace." An Exian nodded and remarked, "Master, though you say you don't care about this or that, I think there isn't anyone softer-hearted than you." Guan often instructed his disciples that protecting the celestial spirit great world was enough. Yet whenever the 3,000 great worlds faced calamities, he would always intervene, albeit discreetly. She understood her master's approach. Being too conspicuous risked defending the celestial court, inviting greater disasters, which only deepened her admiration for him. Knowing something impossible and still doing it. Guan did not respond to an Exian but changed the subject, saying, "Tomorrow, I'll take you to experience a real battle. You might lose, so prepare yourself mentally." Upon hearing this, Zin's smile faded, her eyes filled with battle intent. She indeed needed more powerful opponents. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know. Report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 864. The vast gap below the star sea. The expansive dark earth stretched endlessly. A flicker of fire stood conspicuously against the darkness. Upon closer inspection, thousands of cultivators sat around a massive bonfire. Liya sat cross-legged at the forefront, placing his treasure sword upon his lap. He was healing while simultaneously seeking sword enlightenment. Throughout the endless years, he had encountered numerous people who aided him, from unparalleled great powers to immortal gods descending to the mortal realm. The assistance from various destined individuals had already paved a path in his sword Dao uniquely his own. Regardless of their motives for helping him, he remained true to himself, and everything he had experienced forged his current sword Dao. Despite emerging victorious in the battle against the 3 golden crows, one had escaped, and he realized this would bring about a greater calamity. He must become as strong as possible to protect the disciples around him. The surrounding disciples did not disturb him, chatting in whispers about today's battle, or discussing the way of cultivation in groups of 2s and 3s. Day transitioned into night. Months passed in the blink of an eye. Liya did not seek a place to hide because as long as he remained in this great thousand world, there was no point in hiding anywhere. Until one morning, not long after dawn, flames descended from the sky, making the earth feel like it was within a furnace. The tens of thousands of disciples following Liya looked up, all frowning. A gigantic golden crow, its wings spanning millions of miles, hovered above the celestial vault, obscuring the heavens and skies. From their angle, its wings seemed larger than the celestial vault itself, as a fiery sea engulfed the sky, burning fiercely, causing the temperature between heaven and earth to soar abruptly. Liya stood up, lifting his gaze skyward to see a figure atop the head of the golden crow, whose fierce intense flames could not conceal their form. He couldn't help but furrow his eyebrows. With just one glance, he felt he was not a match for the opponent. "You dared harm my child, mortal. You court death." A cold, indifferent voice reverberated across heaven and earth, causing a look of confusion to flash in Liya's eyes. He had slain 2 golden crows. How could that merely be considered hurting? Could it be that those 2 golden crows were not dead? He had no time to think further. Grabbing his sword, he unsheathed it, unleashing an immense sword intent that transformed into a sea of silver light, blanketing the ground and isolating it from the scorching heat from the sky. "Disciples, continue resting. Your master will return shortly. With these words left behind, Li Ya's figure transformed into a sword light, soaring upwards to attack the golden crow in the sky, igniting a massive battle. Simultaneously, on a distant mountain peak, Guan and an Exian stood on a cliffside observing this battle. An Exian furrowed her brows, saying, "Isn't that person's cultivation nearing the heaven-balancing golden immortal realm?" Guan replied, "Yes, it is already nearing the breakthrough period. He is your opponent. As your master, I remind you that your divine skills might be ineffective against him, so do not be careless." An Exian nodded, then leapt into the air, flying towards the distance. Although the battle had just begun, she could feel that Li Ya was definitely not the opponent's match. The longer the delay, the greater the likelihood of Li Ya's downfall. The reflection of Li Ya's figure appeared in Gu An's pupils as Li Ya was descending. Facing the mysterious being atop the golden crow, he couldn't withstand even a single move. The opponent waved his hand downward, dispersing his sword intent, causing his mana to collapse and blood to spurt from his body, nearly shattering him. Seeing Li Ya plummet, all the disciples panicked. Sar the Nafire. Et website on Google to access chapters of novels early and in the highest quality. However, Li Ya's sword intent still enveloped the ground, preventing them from flying out. They could only watch as Li Ya fell into the sword intent array, with one disciple swiftly catching his blood-soaked form. Li Ya, hair disheveled and face stained with blood, opened his eyes to see the loftily perched golden crow. His eyes filled with unwillingness. Earlier, he sensed he would lose, but never imagined he would be defeated so swiftly. What realm could the opponent possibly be? That palm struck terror in Li Ya, lacking any earth-shattering destruction. Yet the Tao intent of that palm pressed heavily upon him, leaving him no room to escape. It's over. A sense of despair engulfed Li Ya. At this moment, a figure flashed across his mind. He knew if he spoke, that person would definitely appear. His own life was of no consequence, but he had so many disciples below. He couldn't bear to see his beloved disciples die here. "Master, are you all right?" The male disciple holding Li Ya asked nervously, bringing him to the ground as other disciples surged forth like a tide. Li Ya opened his mouth, blood continuously pouring out. To his horror, he discovered a chilling mana was ravaging his body, trying to prevent him from speaking. "Gu." Li Ya desperately forced out one word, but couldn't utter a second. His pupils trembled, plunging him into unprecedented panic. The disciples had never seen Li Ya displaying such an expression before, stirring both shock and rage among them. They all looked up, faces twisted with fury, glaring at the golden crow in the sky with eyes filled with hatred, void of any fear. Tens of thousands of hate-filled faces gazed skyward, causing the mysterious high existence to frown. He was a tall man clad in a red robe, with a dark red serpent coiled around his waist, black scales crawling across half his face, resembling a half-man, half-demon. Just as he was about to strike, he abruptly turned his head to see enormous purple eyes emerging at the ends of the world. Peering into the tiny world below, a figure appeared out of thin air behind him, swinging a sword to strike. As he shifted form, transforming into countless illusionary clones spreading across the sky above the golden crow, he focused his gaze ahead to see a white-clothed woman standing atop the golden crow, coldly staring at him. It was an Exian. The red-robed man immediately led his countless clones to assault an Exian, who was charging back at him. With a roar, the massive golden crow exploded. Gusts mixed with heat waves swept towards all corners of heaven and earth, blinding Li Ya and his disciples with fire waves. But soon, the fire waves dissipated, revealing the celestial vault, leaving them wide-eyed in disbelief. The bright celestial vault now hosted countless densely packed purple eyes of varying sizes, impossible to count, causing any observer to shiver with unease. Li Ya clearly observed the true form of the newcomer, expressing delight, and suddenly no longer felt the need to speak. The agony within his body faded with it. "Junior brother Gu, even this you can hear?" Li Ya felt a sense of joy, mistaking it for Gu and hearing his inner voice and immediately dispatching an Exian. Simultaneously, he was astonished by Nzin's strength. He had never crossed blades with an Exian, but had met many times. remembering her as a regular disciple from the Third Medicine Valley of the Supreme Sect. Even with her closeness to Guan, her cultivation level was ordinary. Watching an Xian battle the red-robed man, displaying overwhelming divine skills and spells, he clearly noticed the vast disparity between himself and an Xian. Could even the slightest disciple around junior brother Gu be stronger than him? Recalling Zhen Qin's hesitant expression when facing him before, Leah couldn't help but let out a bitter smile. So that's how it is. The surrounding disciples were equally astonished by Enzin's might, feeling as if the celestial vault had been ripped apart. The extraordinary scenes, as if the outer space was collapsing, with every divine skill and spell exchange between an Xian and the red-robed man, stimulated their eyes and souls. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know. Report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 865. Sudden Enlightenment. Guan stood on the cliff, quietly watching the battle. The man in the red robe was unparalleled across countless eras, undefeated in the same realm, making him a perfect whetstone for an Xian. Although he already foresaw the outcome, he was still eager to see how the ensuing events would unfold. Helping Leah was one reason, but he was also very interested in the existence backing the man in the red robe. It might lead to a huge explosion of lifespan. Guan felt no burden in exterminating such malevolent powers. Powers like these, capable of incidentally annihilating the heavens and earth, were a result of the vast disparity in strength. However, the red-robed man allowed his offspring to torment all living beings, collecting grievances, which was truly evil. The 3 golden crows were intentionally burning the earth, slowly forcing the remaining creatures of this world to harbor resentment toward heaven and earth, toward the heavenly Tao. Meanwhile, they could also cultivate their cultivation technique by collecting the grievances of all beings. Guan watched the battle while examining his attribute panel. He was contemplating when to make his breakthrough. For some reason, this breakthrough gave him a bad premonition. He always felt that his lifespan was insufficient, because over the years he had continually pursued the saint realm. Even though he had guidance from his experiences within the profound abyss divine pool, he still felt saints were beyond reach. Unable to imagine how he could achieve sainthood. The more he chased the saint realm, the greater his reverence for saints. Yet, knowing there are records about saints within the profound abyss divine pool indicates that saints do truly exist. Where exactly are the saints? Are they watching the heavenly Tao? Guan pondered silently, his gaze fixed on an Xian and the man in the red robe. The 2 innate golden immortals fought until the heavens and earth trembled. They tried to avoid affecting the ground. At the same time, a mysterious force covered the earth, protecting it against the aftershocks of their mana. That mysterious force came from the backing of the man in the red robe, whose existence was a Tao Extreme Daoyuo immortal. Only Guan could detect his mana, the others were unaware, including an Xian who hadn't discovered its presence. An Xian used the immortal Emperor's eye, but the man in the red robe could always see through it in an instant. Though he could see through it, an Xian still caused him significant trouble. Simultaneously, an Xian also felt pressured. The man in the red robe's physical strength was too formidable. Even using karma divine power couldn't harm him. An Xian felt unprecedented pressure, and so did the man in the red robe, causing his expression to turn grim. He knew his ancestor was watching him. If he couldn't defeat this woman using his own strength, how would he face his ancestor? There was also competition within their lineage. He came to the heavenly Tao with a mission. When Leah descended into this realm earlier, he noticed it but didn't pay much attention. Little did he expect such a powerful existence behind him. Nonetheless, I will not be defeated. A fierce light burst from the man in the red robe's eyes. His aura suddenly surged, shattering the surrounding space, breaking through the illusion realm created by the immortal Emperor's eye, and drawing an Xian into his domain. They arrived in a vast expanse where the man in the red robe ascended high above, surrounded by rivers of the great Tao. As he struck down with his palm, countless stars descended from the heavens, crashing toward an Xian standing on the earth. Sir, the novel F. Iyer. Et website on Google to access chapters of novels early and in the highest quality. An Xian was surprised to find herself unable to move. The domain sealed her actions as soon as it pulled her in. Very impressive. Yet to think such tactics could defeat her was to underestimate her greatly. An Exian looked up. The immortal emperor's eye erupted with extraordinary light. From her eyes emerged 2 divine swords that rapidly enlarged, slashing the entire realm into halves, pulverizing all the stars along the way. With just a glance, she obliterated the domain and regained her mobility. The battle continued fiercely, both sides employing divine skills. Yet despite their full exertion, they couldn't defeat each other in a short time. On the ground, Leah had commenced meditating. He and his disciples all looked up at the battle, but none other than himself could discern the situation. So powerful. Leah was secretly amazed. The aura of the 2 in the sky was beyond his reach, and their divine skills bewildered him. His sword Tao had long reached a transcendent level, his prideful asset, but compared to the mysterious divine skills of an Exian and the red-robed man, he felt his sword Tao was insignificant. Especially in Xin's eyes, as her divine skills were executed without a trace, he could perceive the red-robed man's frequent pauses, clearly affected by divine skills. Yet what exactly they were he couldn't see or guess. Over time, Leah noticed that the aftermath of the battle in the sky didn't affect them. Judging by the power an Exian and her opponent displayed, his sword intent couldn't possibly block it. What did this signify? Guan had arrived. Leah relaxed completely. A smile appeared on his face as he started to enjoy this unparalleled battle. An Exian was Guan's disciple, who had come specifically to rescue him. He felt he should not be jealous but grateful to an Exian. And Xin's formidable strength was a good thing, indicating Guan's excellent teaching and serving to counteract his own arrogance and impatience. He must not become complacent over his own opportunities. While he has his chances, others do too, and he must never indulge in pride. With this change in mindset, Leah began to ponder if other disciples within the beginning list were as formidable as an Exian. Not to mention, Xian was indeed impressive. Leah grew up hearing tales of Xian's talent. Later, his life experienced a turnaround, and he disregarded Xian. But since learning that Xian cultivated under Guan, he felt the pressure, though he never mentioned it. With Xian's talent combined with Guan's teaching, his current strength must be astonishing. For some reason, Leah felt somewhat moved. How many great powers have become so mighty that they can no longer see old acquaintances? Childhood targets remain, still motivating him to pursue. How could that not make him happy? He even wondered, had Guan not come to the celestial spirit great world, what would have happened to him and his old friends? Suddenly, he seemed to have grasped something, falling into deep thought. He needed to find his own Tao, but a person couldn't imagine it out of thin air. He needed references, a direction. Perhaps Guan could become his direction. Guan, who shouldn't have existed, brought new hope to many. Wasn't that the path he now walked? For his disciples he shouldn't have appeared, yet he did, and he is leading them. As Leah pondered, he gradually entered a state of sudden enlightenment. Guan's gaze was drawn to him. Not bad. Guan praised. Under his scrutiny, Leah's future underwent a earth-shattering transformation. Tao Extreme Daoyuo Immortal was no longer Leah's limit. For the first time, Leah became the one among Guan's old acquaintances to have the highest future achievements. Moreover, this time Guan didn't guide him. He comprehended it himself, and this improvement held immense significance for him. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know. Report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 866. This is not important. Only Guan discovered Leah's enlightenment. An Exian, who was in the midst of battle, naturally had no way to pay attention below, while Leah's disciples were captivated by the battle above. After several hours passed, they finally were drawn by Leah's sudden enlightenment state. As the duration of the sudden enlightenment grew longer, Leah began to unconsciously affect the surrounding spiritual energy, and even the rules of heaven and earth. This caused strange phenomena to appear around him, with clusters of glowing green lotuses emerging from the ground and enveloping him. What is this? Is the master practicing? No, the master has entered a state of selflessness. It looks like he's in enlightenment. Indeed, Master is in sudden enlightenment. Truly, despite experiencing failure, he can quickly rally. This is exactly what we must learn. All the disciples grew excited. Liya was not only their master but had also saved their lives. Even if Liya was defeated, it would not affect his image and status in their hearts. Seeing their master in sudden enlightenment, they genuinely felt happy for him. The battle between an Exian and the red-robed man continued. For Liya, this time of sudden enlightenment felt like a trance. When he regained consciousness, he instinctively looked up. The great battle in the sky was still ongoing, but the celestial vault was no longer bright, replaced by an infinite starry sky. Dozens of golden crows were besieging an Exian, which was why the heavens seemed to be like broad daylight. SE of the Novel Fire. Any *T website on Google to access chapters of novels early and in the highest quality. In the depths of the starry sky, countless purple eyes appeared, densely packed like a myriad of stars. Liya snapped back to reality and asked, "How long has this battle been going on?" The process of his sudden enlightenment was blurry in his memory, but he could keenly feel that a certain amount of time had passed. "Master, it has been 7 days." The disciple beside Liya answered, looking at him with eyes full of anticipation. A session of enlightenment left Liya's demeanor more detached and otherworldly. Not only that, the injuries on his body seemed to have healed. Even the blood scabs had fallen off, leaving his skin as white as jade, as if imbued with an immortal's flawless skin and bones, though his robe was tattered and ragged. In those 7 days, watching Liya's transformation filled the disciples with infinite hope. Even if the person in heaven could not defeat the enemy, they believed the master could turn the tide. 7 days, huh? Liya murmured to himself. He could feel that his mana had been restored. This feeling was wondrous, leaving him with endless aftertaste. However, even in a restored state, he was no match for those two in the sky. All he could do was continue to watch. After his enlightenment, although his strength did not improve significantly, his senses and insight underwent a qualitative change. He discovered that a vast mana enveloped the earth, protecting them from the battle's impact. However, this mana was like that of the red-robed man, making him feel cold. He initially thought it was Guan shielding the heavens and earth, but now it seemed not to be the case. Behind the red-robed man, there was an even stronger presence. Liya's heart was filled with confusion. Why didn't these evil demons just kill them outright, but chose to protect them? In his eyes, the evil demons rampaging across the heavens and earth were undoubtedly intertwined with the celestial court. Liya couldn't figure it out, so he decided not to think about it since this battle was no longer something he could intervene in. He might as well reflect on his previous experiences, striving for a leap in strength after this battle. Rather than being protected by Guan, he would rather rely on his power to shield his disciples. After 7 days of fighting, an Exian and the red-robed man's momentum had not diminished. Both were innate golden immortals, possessing immense mana. 7 days were nothing. They could battle for another 7 million years without issue. But both had extraordinary comprehension. They could make progress in battle, searching for the opponent's weaknesses. Their attacks became increasingly frightening, and they began to hurt each other. Since practicing the immortal Emperor's Eye, an Exian had never felt such an urgent sense of threat, even somewhat powerless. Her immortal Emperor's Eye could not prevail against the opponent. The immortal Emperor's Eye was her greatest reliance. Should it be defeated, she would be inevitably doomed. As Nzin's mind wavered, a figure suddenly appeared before her and reached for her eyes. Nzin's pupils contracted. She had no time to react, only witnessing the hand reaching out to her. Everything happened too fast. Snap. Another hand suddenly appeared, grabbing the hand in front of an Exian. Guan appeared beside an Exian. Both stopped, as did the red-robed man in the distance poised to attack. His expression was extremely grim as he gazed at the mysterious elder before Guan and an Exian. The mysterious elder, who aimed to seize Nzin's immortal Emperor's Eye, was clad in a dark purple robe. Though his form was human-like, his head was that of a black crow, wearing a dignified and imposing headpiece, like the embodiment of extreme evil, exuding a chilling aura. Guan saw through the origins of this mysterious elder with a glance. one of the primordial ancestors from the Dark Heavenly Court's Golden Crow clan, known as the Black Fall Emperor. The Black Fall Emperor was a Dao Extreme Daoyuo immortal. He had been observing the battle all along but had not detected Gu An's presence. So when Guan appeared, he was quite shocked, his eyes bewildered. With an Xian and the red-robed man ceasing their battle, the Dharma aspect permeating the universe rapidly dissipated. Only the distant void continued to twist, flames burning endlessly, all symbolic of the fierce battle that had occurred. The void fell silent in an instant. Seeing the appearance of Guan and the Black Fall Emperor, Leah immediately breathed a sigh of relief. Although he knew Guan would intervene, the moment Black Fall Emperor took action, that terrifying aura also made his hair stand on end. Even with Gu An's presence, there was no hint of aura revealed. If not for seeing Gu An's figure with his own eyes, he would not have known that Guan had made a move. Guan released the Black Fall Emperor's hand. The Black Fall Emperor did not immediately act. He stared intently at Guan and asked in a deep voice, "Which fellow Daoist intends to intervene in this matter?" Even with Guan right in front of him, he couldn't see Gu An's face, causing his vigilance to reach its peak. This person's cultivation level was likely above his. Yet within the heavenly Dao, of those stronger than him, he had seen or heard of them to some degree, but it was the first time he experienced Gu An's aura. It was peaceful and tranquil without a hint of threat. Yet upon closer examination, it invoked a deeply unfathomable sense of dread. Guan calmly said, "The juniors battle. If we intervene, it would be against the rules, wouldn't it?" Upon hearing this, the Black Fall Emperor's heart raced like lightning, beginning to weigh the advantages and disadvantages. Rationality told him not to act against this person, for even if he had a chance to win, the commotion would undoubtedly alarm the Celestial Court. Let it go, it doesn't matter. Guan sighed and followed with a wave of his sleeve. His movement was too swift. The Black Fall Emperor, like an Xian before, had no time to respond, only feeling a strong breeze blowing towards him. As a Dao Extreme Daoyuo immortal, the Black Fall Emperor directly turned to dust before Guan. The red-robed man froze. He hadn't reacted in time and couldn't comprehend what had happened. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know. Report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 867. Point of No Return. You have successfully slain the Black Fall Emperor, late-stage Daoist Great Luo Immortal Realm, 692,872,400,811,223 years of lifespan. Upon seeing the prompt before him, Guan's mood instantly lifted. The Black Fall Emperor was present as he manifested himself, which is why Guan appeared, saving the need to use Karma Divine Power. The reason the Black Fall Emperor descended in his true form was naturally not due to recklessness. Rather, he had something to seek in the heavenly Dao. Now Guan, even without resorting to soul search techniques, could see through the past of the Black Fall Emperor, especially since they had made contact, grasping the hand for a moment, leaving nothing secretive about the Black Fall Emperor in his eyes. This was the most lifespan he had ever seized, which also indicates that even the Dao Extreme Daoyuo Immortal is not immortal. The destiny of the Dark Heavenly Court is much like that of the Celestial Court, but it cannot achieve the undying nature of the Celestial Court immortals and gods. Especially when the Black Fall Emperor came to the Heavenly Dao, repelled by the Heavenly Dao rules, his lifespan revealed, thus giving Guan the opportunity. Guan's gaze turned toward the red-robed man, who was at this moment still in shock. It wasn't that he was scared silly, but rather he simply couldn't believe his ancestor would die. He still thought his ancestor was being deliberately mysterious. However, the longer he waited, the more uneasy he became. As Guan's gaze fell upon him, although he couldn't see Guan's true visage, he could feel a chilling sense of horror as if he were pierced by thorns. The red-robed man disappeared in an instant, the void silent, as he swiftly maneuvered out of this great thousand world. An Xian frowned, but she did not speak. She trusted her master's judgment and choice. Guan merely turned around and then raised his right hand, his palm opening, and the red-robed man inexplicably appeared within it. Upon seeing this, an Xian inwardly marveled. Even at such close proximity, she could not discern the techniques of her master. Under Nzin's gaze, the struggling red-robed man suddenly turned into ashes. Another prompt appeared before Guan's eyes, although compared to the lifespan brought by the Black Fall Emperor, it was hardly worth mentioning. Let's go. Guan spoke, then stepped forward, disappearing with an Xian into the cosmic void. On the ground, Liya and over 10,000 disciples were still observing. Except for Liya, none could see clearly what was happening beyond the heavens. Liya hadn't actually seen the entire process. He only saw the sudden appearance of the Black Fall Emperor, and then his disappearance. After a while, the mysterious red-robed man also vanished. After Guan appeared, the battle abruptly ended. Liya's mood was akin to Nzin's. Only by crossing swords with a reference could he appreciate Guan's profoundness and unpredictability. Beside him, a disciple cautiously asked, "Master, the disturbance outside has vanished. Does this mean the battle has concluded?" Liya withdrew his gaze and softly laughed. "Yes, it has ended. We have narrowly escaped a calamity. Let the other disciples continue their cultivation. From now on, no one will come to disturb us, at least in this realm." These words had barely been spoken before disciples from all around began to cheer, their voices shaking the heavens. Liya took a deep breath, recalling Guan's figure, his heart filled with determination. This time, upon sudden enlightenment, he felt he had truly found the right direction and eagerly anticipated future accomplishments. Elsewhere, Guan and an Xian had already returned to the Taoist field of the beginningless, the master and disciple walking along the mountain path, just as they did in days past, chatting freely. An Xian began to summarize the battle, feeling she lacked lethal great divine power, craving that domineering force that could turn enemies to ashes upon contact. Guan mocked her greed, telling her to create for herself. He indeed possessed such divine skill but wished an Xian to trail her own path. If utterly impossible, then he would teach her. An Xian had no thoughts of beseeching Guan to teach her, desiring to rely on her own immortal emperor's eye to create, setting this as her cultivation goal. An expectation filled her. "From now on, you'll continue in seclusion," Guan suddenly said. Carrying an Xian was somewhat inconvenient. Having accompanied for so many years was enough. And indeed an Xian had gleaned much, a perfect conclusion. Sar the novel F. Ire. Et website on Google to access chapters of novels early and in the highest quality. An Xian never resisted Guan's arrangements, nor did she question his reasoning. Turning to Guan curiously, she asked, "Master, will you continue to rescue the suffering all living beings?" Over the years, they ventured into many worlds. Aside from slaying monsters and demons, they also left behind opportunities, feeling greater accomplishment from sowing kindness and accumulating virtue rather than merely cultivating their own fortuity. I will roam again anyways, nothing much to do." "Aren't you afraid the celestial court will notice?" "Afraid, so will come quietly, doing things within my capability, not striving for greater merit, just soothing an uneasy heart." Guan's reply left an Xian admiring. Even as her master grew formidable, he candidly admitted his caution towards the celestial court, a trait worth learning. Thus master and disciple conversed freely, traversing mountains, appearing small and easily veiled by the vast greenery within the expansive Taoist field of the beginningless. In the splendid palace, above was a starry sky, countless golden dragons coiling around, their golden glow illuminating the hall, rendering it extremely bright. The Xianyuan human venerable sat in meditation atop the high platform at the forefront of the hall. Behind him was a circular screen, displaying images of land, rivers, and mountains, a great river cascading from the highest peak, flowing past mountain ranges, adorned along its course with picturesque views of the Star Sea. This screen wasn't large, yet upon close scrutiny it seemed boundless. At this moment, a figure flew into the hall, an old immortal. It was none other than Sichuan Old Immortal. Approaching the steps, he saluted Xianyuan human venerable, then raised his head, his visage full of anxiety. "Your Highness, if this continues, you are certain to meet utter ruin." Sichuan Old Immortal spoke, gritting his teeth. Xianyuan human venerable slowly opened his eyes, looking at Sichuan Old Immortal, self-mockingly said, "Do you think I have any means to reverse it now?" This is the celestial court. Even the ancestor Master Wusher cannot interfere. Sichuan old immortal followed. Your Highness, have you forgotten your teacher? You have no other course. It's time to gamble everything. Even not for yourself. You must fight for the living beings of the 3,000 great worlds. This is your immortal position. It cannot be defied, nor ignored, or else Songtian will exact punishment upon you. This is also the scheme of the Supreme Emperor. Upon hearing this, Xianyuan human venerable's eyes flickered. Your Highness, this Taoist knows for certain the Supreme must have left you with means. Even if you can't depart this cold palace, you can contact him, correct? Sichuan old immortal asked expectantly. Not only does he serve Xianyuan human venerable, but his disciples, his descendants, too many causalities rely on Xianyuan human venerable, he cannot afford to lose. Beyond his juniors, other immortals and gods hope he delivers the message to Xianyuan human venerable, imploring him to rally, not to give up. To give up would mean utter ruin. Celestial court immortals and gods are immortal, transcending all living beings. Yet the struggles within the celestial court are fiercer than those in the human world. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 868. Lifespan of trillions of years. After listening to the words of Sichuan old immortal, the expression of Xianyuan human venerable fluctuated between brightness and darkness. Although Sichuan old immortal was anxious, he also understood that Xianyuan human venerable had to come to terms with this matter first. Xianyuan human venerable looked at Sichuan old immortal and asked, have you ever thought, even if I risk everything and make the celestial army retreat, the all-living beings of the 3,000 great worlds will still hate me? Their perspective cannot see the battles of the celestial court, and even after the disaster, if I explain to them, how can they believe it? You underestimate the heart of hatred of mortal spirits. The face of Sichuan old immortal changed slightly, and following Xianyuan human venerable's words, he felt cold in his limbs. We are immortal gods. How can we explain everything to mortal spirits in person? Moreover, this is indeed the consequence of the struggles among immortal gods. The suffering mortal spirits will not care who is the instigator. They will continue to hate the immortal gods, and my destiny will only decline until my realm falls. Once the faith in the celestial court in the 3,000 great worlds drops to a certain level, Songtian will erase the 3,000 great worlds. When Taishang set up this situation, no matter what we do, the outcome is already determined. By the end, Xianyuan human venerable's tone became cold, and Sichuan old immortal bowed his head. Once Songtian decides to erase the 3,000 great worlds, Xianyuan human venerable, who holds the immortal position governing the 3,000 great worlds, will undoubtedly be severely punished. Sichuan old immortal became more and more desperate, feeling utterly hopeless. For a moment, the hall fell into silence. The celestial army led by the Marshal of Heaven continued to sweep across the great thousand world, and wherever they passed, nothing could stop them. Not even the Grand Alliance of the 3,000 great worlds stood a chance against them. Even though they were invincible in battle, the Marshal of Heaven did not speed up. Nor would he stop anyone who wanted to escape. He swept through all heavens and myriad realms at his own pace. Every world they passed became shrouded in darkness, and as the faith in the heavenly Tao among all living beings grew weaker, the celestial Tao light layer that protected the world also weakened, granting more opportunities for invasion by the dark heavenly court, chaos evil demons, and Yin ghost gods. There were many great powers like Liya who, not daring to confront the celestial court, chose to save all beings. They began to fight against the dark heavenly court and chaos evil demons, and thus the news of the dark powers invasion spread in the 3,000 great worlds, leading to more speculation among the various forces. This catastrophe was not just the celestial court targeting the 3,000 great worlds. There might be a greater conspiracy hidden behind it. Guan, who had long seen through everything, did not think too much about it. He continued to wander across different worlds, saving suffering souls and plundering the lifespan of evil demons. The world is cruel, and all beings are miserable. Guan only saves those within his sight. 1,000 years quickly passed. This evening, Guan was walking along the ridge of another great world, accompanied by the setting sun. He summoned his attribute panel frowny face name. Guan lifespan, 160,691. 711/45 021 570, 356 109, 227, 345. Physique. Creation essence body. Cultivation level. Ultimate merging Tao Venerable Emperor Realm Perfection. 450 quintillion years. Breaking through to a lifespan of hundreds of quintillions of years did not trigger a new lifespan function, nor did it prompt an upgrade of the lifespan feature. He didn't mind this point. Just the sight of his lifespan skyrocketing was already a source of joy. The last breakthrough only took him 22 quintillion years of lifespan, and now it has increased more than 200-fold. How wealthy! He felt that he could break through at any time, but at the thought of the Saint Realm, he still felt it was not enough. Anyway, now it's still the early stages of the battle between human gods, so he doesn't have to rush to break through. Breaking through too early would bring about variables. Get through this tribulation first, as this calamity wasn't aimed at him. Guan turned his head to look at the distant setting sun, above which the celestial vault was dark blue, and below the setting sun, the land seemed to be under flames, like a line dividing two worlds. The evil demons in this world were more numerous than in the previous great world, but since there were many outer heaven cultivators coming to aid and save, he was not in a hurry. This world had good opportunities and would give birth to an immortal god who passed the heavenly Tao assessment, just like Li Xuanmiao. Unfortunately, as the involvement of cause and effect in the 3,000 great worlds increased, his future became fragile, and he was likely to be destroyed along with the 3,000 great worlds, with a destiny to ascend to immortality shattered like a mirage. Through his cause and effect, Guan sensed the changes in destiny. The endless cause and effect made the branches of destiny extend infinitely. The path of destiny was more complex than people usually imagined. Those who spied on destiny thought they could see through it. However, as their realms improved, the destinies they saw would keep advancing, indicating that there always existed destiny lines that their current realm couldn't see. Guan wondered if there might be destiny lines even the Supreme Emperor of Ultimate Merging Tao couldn't see. In his eyes, the fate of the 3,000 great worlds being wiped out by Tsangtian was becoming increasingly clear, signifying that the 3,000 great worlds were on the path to destruction. Tsangtian will not only destroy the 3,000 great worlds, but also wipe out the dark creatures roaming within them. Even if one escapes the 3,000 great worlds, as long as they possess the cause and effect of the heavenly Tao, it's difficult to escape. Guan wanted to protect the celestial spirit great world, so he must stop Tsangtian. As for Tsangtian, it is nothing more than the will of the celestial emperor. Facing Tsangtian is akin to confronting the celestial emperor. Guan had already prepared to face the celestial emperor. He decided to break through before Tsangtian could destroy the 3,000 great worlds, and he would go deep into the chaos, as far away from the heavenly Tao as possible. Guan's steps did not stop, and gradually, he returned to the Taoist field of the beginningless. He arrived at the mountaintop courtyard wherein Zizai had long been waiting. Ancestor, the immortal gods are about to arrive. Wu Xie and the others are preparing to set up a formation in the outer heaven. Do you agree? And Zizai approached and asked. Guan replied, if they wish to go, let them. What is coming is not the true immortal gods. Not the true immortal gods? And Zizai was puzzled. You will understand in the future. Guan left these words and walked towards his room. And Zizai looked at Guan's back, feeling that in the past millennium, the ancestor had become more mysterious and distant. Previously, the ancestor always had a gentle smile, but now his smiles were fewer. Could it be related to the immortal gods sweeping the 3,000 great worlds? And Zizai thought inwardly, but he dared not ask more. He turned and left to meet Wu Xie. Sar the Ovalfire. Net website on Google to access chapters of novels early and in the highest quality. The next morning, Guan descended the mountain, and Zue had already been waiting for him on the mountain path, quickly bowing to greet him. Follow me. Guan responded briefly, prepared to take Zue to a secluded place, and teach him the immortal emperor's eye cultivation. Meanwhile, in another corner of the celestial spirit great world, atop the mountains, A black rift appeared in the celestial vault, interwoven with lightning, terrifying and eerie, scaring away the birds in the forest below. Soon, a figure stepped out of the black rift. It was a white-haired man, dressed in a white feather robe, wearing a true dragon golden crown and holding a long spear in his hand, the blade resembling a snake. His features were handsome, and his brows exuded an aloof temperament. He surveyed the heavens and the earth in all directions, his brows furrowed, as if contemplating something. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know. Report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 869. The celestial army descends. It should be this realm, just for the destiny of this realm to end? The man in the white robe muttered to himself, his tone filled with confusion. He sensed numerous auras approaching. Clearly, his arrival had alarmed the living beings of this realm. He immediately vanished into the air, and the black spatial rift he left behind began to shrink. By the time a group of cultivators arrived, the rift had already narrowed significantly. Has someone ascended? Hard to say, the aura just now was terrifying, unlike that of an ascender. Could it be an invasion by immortal gods? Unlikely. I've heard that when immortal gods invade the great world, they do so openly and even announce their arrival in advance, brazen to the extreme. How many years has it been? Who knows when immortal gods might invade our celestial spirit great world? It's making me uneasy even in cultivation. The group of cultivators discussed among themselves. Failing to find the man in the white robe, they gave up searching. Elsewhere, Guan brought Sin into the bamboo grove, and began teaching him the cultivation technique of the immortal emperor's eye. This bamboo grove had been set with a restriction by him, capable of blocking divine sense, ensuring that the aura inside wouldn't leak out, allowing Sin to cultivate the immortal emperor's eye in peace here. Sin indeed had talent in the immortal emperor's eye, with better comprehension than an Xian. After just a month of teaching by Guan, he could start to comprehend on his own. Afterward, Guan no longer concerned himself with him, continuing on his path of harvesting lifespans. The celestial army rampaged unchecked. World after world within the great 1,000 worlds fell. The alliance formed by the 3,000 great worlds stood no chance against the immortal gods. Cultivators from the celestial spirit great world who went to battle fled back, bringing with them numerous reports. They spread the terror of the immortal gods, severely dampening the morale of all living beings. Those dreadful battles made the masses give up hope in resisting the immortal gods, replacing it with unease and fear. The celestial army was getting ever closer to the celestial spirit great world. Year after year passed. The fearsome legends about the immortal gods grew, making everyone feel as if the immortal gods were closing in. Under the weight of this terrifying pressure, more talents arose in the human world, as sects from all sides created momentum, portraying the geniuses they focused on cultivating as unparalleled talents born in response to the calamity. A millennium passed, and the immortal gods were not far from the celestial spirit great world. A great power proclaimed that at the latest, in 300 years, the immortal gods would descend upon the celestial spirit great world. Against this backdrop, more outer heaven visitors entered the world gate. Some coming to support the celestial spirit great world, others to watch the battle and gather information. Guan paid no mind to the turbulent currents in the human world, instead quietly harvesting lifespans, leaving hope amidst the lands bathed in blood. The cultivation techniques he left behind were all basic chi absorption techniques, which wouldn't be tainted by his cause and effect. As all living beings awaited anxiously, the immortal god army once again bathed a region of the great 1,000 worlds in blood. On the rolling thunderclouds above, the Marshal of Heaven stood atop the clouds, hands behind his back, coldly overlooking the scorched earth below, watching mountains collapse with an unchanged expression. SE of the Novel Fire. NT website on Google to access chapters of novels early and in the highest quality. A celestial god appeared beside him out of thin air and spoke. Marshal, the living beings of this realm are less than 1 in 10. Should we proceed to the next great world? Yes. The Marshal of Heaven responded. The celestial god immediately took out a scroll, unfolded it to reveal the cosmic starry scenery, full of dazzling nebulas swirling, their number beyond estimation, constantly shifting, drawing close at times, then drifting away, dizzying to behold. The celestial god placed the scroll before the Marshal of Heaven, awaiting his selection. The Marshal of Heaven surveyed the landscape within the scroll, asking, "Has Emperor Xianqing been born in the celestial spirit great world?" The nebulae within the scroll symbolized the great thousand worlds, and the Marshal of Heaven only needed to focus on a great world to insight into this realm's general cause and effect through celestial Tao destiny. "There are indeed such rumors," the celestial god replied respectfully. The Marshal of Heaven waved his sleeve, storing the scroll back with the celestial god, saying, "This realm originates from the contest of the Son of Heaven. So let's go to the world where the Son of Heaven was born and give other innocent worlds more time to breathe." "As you command." The celestial god immediately accepted the order and turned to relay the command. The Marshal of Heaven still stood proudly on the clouds, overlooking the broken earth. Behind him gradually rose golden light, casting his countenance into darkness. The calamity of the celestial spirit great world was finally coming. In the dim heavens and earth, Zhang Buku meditated atop a mountain peak, fierce winds howling all around, thousands of bolts of lightning interweaving above his head, as if he were in hell. Suddenly, Zhang Buku opened his eyes, frowning, raising a hand to cover his chest. This feeling, could it be? A stern look flashed in Zhang Buku's eyes, and he instinctively wanted to stand, but a skeletal hand rested on his shoulder, preventing him from rising. He didn't need to turn to know who was behind him. The immortal gods are about to descend upon the great world from. "I can't just wait," Zhang Buku said in a deep voice. The Emperor Bone Profound Venerable, with a terrifying and shocking posture, stood behind Zhang Buku, calmly stating, "What you long for may already be gone, and that world has only brought you painful memories. Why bother? Besides, the immortal gods won't destroy that world. You can naturally go when they leave." Zhang Buku fell silent for a moment, saying, "There are indeed many painful memories, but it's the place where I was born, and I once had beautiful memories. I don't want to watch it perish." He saw the faces of his father, Master Gu, and Leah flash through his mind. Time had passed so long, memories of the past had become distant, but he always wanted to return, even if those familiar people were no longer there. Now is not the time to oppose the celestial court. Your task is to cultivate, to master the demon god body as soon as possible. The Emperor Bone Profound Venerable declared coldly, his tone leaving no room for doubt. Zhang Buku immediately tried to stand up, but no matter how hard he tried, he couldn't rise. "If you don't let me go, even if I cultivate and succeed in the future, I'll hold a grudge against you." Zhang Buku gritted his teeth and said. The Emperor Bone Profound Venerable passed on cultivation techniques to him, clearly intending to nurture him, but Zhang Buku could never accept the Emperor Bone Profound Venerable, because the Emperor Bone Profound Venerable sought to destroy the heavenly Tao. "Your grudge is your own. I don't care. Blame yourself for not being strong enough now to break free of my restraint." The Emperor Bone Profound Venerable mocked. "Your world is destined for destruction. I welcome you to come seek revenge later." Hearing these words, Zhang Buku was furious. He was just about to say something when everything suddenly went black before him, and his consciousness plunged into emptiness. In the celestial spirit great world, in the depths of the universe, in front of the world gate, the celestial spirit god was meditating and cultivating. A golden light suddenly descended, shining upon him, startling him to open his eyes. He saw at the top of the universe above, rolling thunderclouds, from which a beam of golden light pierced through, descending straight to the world gate. The celestial spirit god sensed a familiar heat. This was the celestial Tao golden light. The vast celestial court's destiny was descending, his complexion changed drastically. The celestial army had finally arrived. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 870. Last Chance. Bathed in the celestial Tao golden light, the shadow of the celestial spirit god stretched exceptionally long, while the shadow of the world gate beside him resembled an ancient and gigantic demon. He raised his head, looking towards the source of the golden light, and he saw a golden mountain descending with incredible speed. He frowned deeply, suppressing the fear in his heart, as he stood in place waiting. Boom! A golden mountain descended with an unstoppable divine might, landing beside the world gate, making the once vast world gate appear insignificant before it. This was the first time the celestial spirit god had seen such a golden mountain. Had it not been for the immense destiny of the celestial court he sensed, he would have already fled. Instinctively, he looked towards the mountain's summit, trying to see if there was any sign of immortal gods, only for another golden mountain to descend. Behind that golden mountain, there was yet another golden mountain. One after another, golden mountains descended with the momentum to suppress all of creation, each one pressing upon the other, creating a grand spectacle that echoed throughout the universe to all living beings' souls, striking awe in all who heard it. Within the Taoist field of the beginningless, the sinner practicing the immortal emperor's eye within the bamboo forest looked up, surprise etched on his face. Not only him, but all disciples within the dojo were also alarmed, with many flying out from their respective cave mansions to see what was happening. Before the world gate, the celestial spirit god's robe fluttered, and the golden armor on him shimmered continually. He stared, astounded, as the golden mountains descended one after another, stacking upon each other, and with each additional mountain, the destiny of the celestial court he felt grew stronger. Finally, with a thud, he fell to his knees. This was the suppression exerted by the celestial pressure on the immortal gods. When the thunderous booming ceased, a majestic heavenly ascension stairs emerged within the universe, making the world gate seem tiny. Figures appeared out of thin air beside the celestial spirit god, none other than Tai Immortal Monarch and the 72 immortals of Jin-dong. Having seen the heavenly ascension stairs before, they were not as shocked as the celestial spirit god. Instead, they looked up solemnly at the top of the stairs, where they saw one celestial god after another stepping out from the intense light, each imposing as they descended down the stairs. As they walked, these celestial gods extended their right hands. Innumerable heavenly soldiers flew out like swarms of bees, rapidly spreading. Could it be the legendary heavenly ascension stairs? The celestial spirit god couldn't help but ask, his voice filled with fear. Of distinguished descent, he had also been to the immortal palace, but his immortal position was too low, and he had only heard of the legendary heavenly ascension stairs. What unsettled him most was that the scale of this celestial army far exceeded his expectations. Wave after wave of powerful presences were descending, enveloping the universe, showcasing the might of the celestial court to all living beings. This spells big trouble, Tai Immortal Monarch softly murmured, gazing up at the figures of the celestial gods atop the heavenly ascension stairs. The faces of the 72 immortals of Jin-dong were equally grim. They felt even more uneasy than Tai Immortal Monarch and the celestial spirit god, because they had the Golden Cave immortal sect behind them. If this battle were lost, their sect might be implicated. An overbearing pressure, far surpassing other immortal gods, descended, plunging all the great worlds within the universe into silence. And all beings felt as if a heavy blow had struck their chests, words choking in their throats. The wind ceased, the vast sea quieted, suffocation to the extreme. The celestial spirit god and others saw a foot step out from that blinding light. Below this foot, even the immortal gods seemed like mere pebbles. As its owner continued to descend, their true form gradually became apparent. It was the Marshal of Heaven. His boots stepped through billowing spirit mist, his silver armor projecting an illusory image, as if an ancient divine beast clawed ferociously, while his face beneath the helmet remained concealed by the light of the heavenly Tao, with a flood dragon coiled atop his helmet, seemingly roaring with all its might. Two large flags stood behind the Marshal of Heaven, flapping resoundingly, like the sound of wind and thunder, or the wrathful voice of the heavenly constitution. Tai Immortal Monarch immediately knelt down, raised his hand in salute to the Marshal of Heaven, lowering his head without daring to meet the Marshal's gaze. The 72 immortals of Jin-dong did the same. The Marshal of Heaven's footsteps were exceedingly heavy, overshadowing all noise. His unhurried pace brought an ever-increasing sense of oppression to the celestial spirit god and others. One heavenly soldier and general after another descended from above like torrential rain, landing in front of the world gate, surrounding the celestial spirit god and others. Meanwhile, great cultivators from the celestial spirit great world flew in like a torrent, gazing at the heavenly ascension stairs from afar, stunned, even dumbstruck. What is that? Immortal gods have arrived. What is this treasure? Such terrifying pressure. Where did that golden rank come from? Could it possibly extend from the heavenly realm to here? Is this the power of the heavenly court immortals? It's over. What should we do? Are we really going to confront such entities? Even before battling the heavenly court immortals, the cultivators from various sects of the celestial spirit great world were heavily shaken, their morale damaged. The demon race forces arrived alongside them, equally startled by the heavenly ascension stairs. All forces slowed their advance, not daring to act rashly. The alliance hierarchs of the heavenly spirit Tao alliance arrived as well, as did Ji Xiaoyu and the former demon emperor, their eyes filled with wariness as they looked at the heavenly ascension stairs. CTH Novelfire. Net website on Google to access chapters of novels early and in the highest quality. With one glance at the heavenly ascension stairs, Ji Xiaoyu knew this battle was beyond their ability to withstand. Without Gu An's intervention, the celestial spirit great world would face annihilation today. The celestial spirit great world was much stronger than before, but still far behind compared to the Nine Extremes great world. Unable to engage in a prolonged battle, like the Nine Extremes. Countless gazes converged below the heavenly ascension stairs. The celestial spirit god, Tai immortal monarch, and others could no longer sense them, surrounded by heavenly soldiers and generals, filled with unease and fear. Despite having steeled their minds beforehand, the appearance of the Marshal of Heaven instilled a primal fear in them. Even Tai immortal monarch was worried, afraid he had bet wrongly. He even felt ridiculous. How could the ancestor Master Wuxia possibly resist against the heavenly will of the celestial court? But such thoughts vanished quickly. He had no path of retreat left, and even if he were to bow his head now, he would face inevitable destruction. Tai immortal monarch and the juniors of the Golden Cave immortal sect, why are you here? Have you all forsaken the celestial court? The Marshal of Heaven's voice rang out, cold and indifferent. Tai immortal monarch quickly raised his head, saying, Marshal, you misunderstand. We are merely remaining in this realm to promote the heavenly Tao. The 72 immortals of Jindong kept their heads lowered, not daring to face the Marshal of Heaven. They had seen the Marshal of Heaven previously within the celestial court, but back then, his aura had not been unleashed as thoroughly as today. Confronted with the full force of his presence, even their immortal positions felt unstable, and their destiny seemed ready to dissipate at any moment, filling them with combined fear and awe. Promote the heavenly Tao? Are you unaware that the celestial court is currently eradicating the chaos evil demons? The Marshal of Heaven's angry rebuke made the 72 immortals of Jindong tremble in fear, and the celestial spirit god was equally alarmed, although the Marshal of Heaven was not directly addressing him, so he did not feel as deeply as the 72 immortals of Jindong. Tai immortal monarch opened his mouth, but could not speak. Once I come down, if you do not rise, I shall take it as your true intentions to promote the heavenly Tao. The Marshal of Heaven continued, then immediately added, You who protect this celestial spirit great world, I offer the same chance to you. As long as you stay hidden or depart quietly, I will not pursue your origins further. This statement was different from before. It was a warning. Within the garden of the Taoist field of the beginningless, Shenzhen and Shangguan Xiener turned their heads to look at Ji Xiaoyu, who was lying beneath a tree reading a book, curious about how he would choose when facing such a terrifying divine might. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 871. Awakening Guan pretended not to notice the glances from Shenzhen and Shangguan Xiener, yet soon other disciples barged into the courtyard. Master, who was that immortal god shouting just now? What an arrogant tone. Master, he's using provocation tactics. There might be more hidden immortal gods in the dark. I think so too. Maybe he's here specifically for you, Master. Those who could come to this courtyard were all second-generation disciples. Compared to the honor of Wuxia, They were more concerned about Gu An's safety. With such rampant immortal gods, they couldn't help but worry. Especially over the past years, even disciples of Wuxia had gone to participate in the Grand Alliance of the 3,000 Worlds, faced immortal gods, and knew how terrifying their power was, completely deserving the description of unparalleled dominance. The courtyard became noisy, and Guan couldn't continue reading. He got up, looking at the chattering disciples, and said with a helpless smile, "Why all the noise? Can what you see be more than what I see?" With these words, everyone quieted down. The blood prison great saint had not spoken earlier. He felt that no matter how many immortal gods there were, they were not a match for his master. But seeing everyone worried about the master, he dared not say so, for fear of fanning the flames. He had observed for hundreds of millions of years, and felt that the master, though verbally claiming fear of the celestial court, was not afraid at all. How long had it been since the heavenly court immortals appeared? The master still hadn't budged, absolutely unafraid of the immortal gods knocking on his door. Perhaps, when he spoke of fearing immortal gods, it was merely to prevent the disciples from becoming complacent. At least every time the blood prison great saint thought that the master might indeed be the strongest existence, he couldn't help but feel his blood boil, uncontrollably excited. "Master, what do you intend to do?" Anaxian asked. She also had full confidence in Guan. But some matters, once done, would cause a lot of trouble, and she was unsure of Gu An's considerations. Guan sighed helplessly and said, "Originally, I wanted to let all beings hone themselves and, when there was no retreat, I would step in. After all, the celestial spirit great world is the world of all beings. However, since this head of the heavenly gods is after me, I can only act in advance." Gu An's words and demeanor were filled with discord, making the disciples secretly exclaim, "No wonder he's the master. At the very least, in the art of pretension, he's already reached the transformation realm. No wonder the books he writes are so enjoyable to read. Turns out he's writing about himself." The blood prison great saint suddenly got excited and yelled, "Master, ride on me to slay the gods and immortals." Everyone was still immersed in the heroic spirit of Gu An's words, but upon hearing the blood prison great saint's words, their emotions were suddenly shattered. Jiangshi glared, saying, "Blood prison great saint, does master need to ride you?" The others followed in mocking the blood prison great saint. If such a thing were to happen, in the future, the blood prison great saint would certainly boast about it, perhaps even press them with it. Just thinking about it made their scalps tingle. Facing everyone's onslaught, the blood prison great saint didn't care at all. He eagerly looked at Guan shook his head and chuckled, not agreeing to the blood prison great saint's request. He looked up towards outer heaven, as the marshal of heaven was still descending. Judging by his pace, it might take a while to walk down the heavenly ascension stairs. This immortal god was doing it deliberately, oppressing the courage of all beings, giving them time to react, leading them to hate Xinyuan human venerable, or even Guan. The ancestor master Wuxia had safeguarded all living beings for countless years, and had long become a guardian god in their hearts. Hearing the marshal of heaven's words, many beings were worried that the ancestor master Wuxia would flee, breeding resentment in them. Guan could already sense the emotions of all beings, but he didn't mind. After all beings have diverse behaviors. Some hate him, some undoubtedly expect him, and some even wish he would leave, so they wouldn't have to join them in death. Now, not only the disciples in the courtyard, but also the beings of the Taoist field of the beginningless and the Nine-Spirit dynasty were anticipating Guan. Except for those beings who had gone to train in outer heaven. Other beings all worshipped Guan, believing him to be the mightiest existence, hoping that he wouldn't lose. The words of the marshal of heaven filled the hearts of all beings in the Nine-Spirit continent with rage. At this moment, Tai immortal monarch, celestial spirit god, and the 72 immortals of Jindong were struggling internally, facing the marshal of heaven's pressure with myriad emotions. They realized it was time to make a choice. If they remained kneeling, they would certainly be alienated by Guan in the future. But if they stood up, what if Guan wasn't a match for the marshal of heaven? After a brief silence, the celestial spirit god slowly rose. He wasn't betting on Gu An's victory, but he had a reason he must stand up for. The heavenly soldiers, and the immortal gods on the heavenly ascension stairs seeing this scene, most of their faces showed disdain. Giving up an immortal god status just to resist the celestial court, utterly foolish. The Marshal of Heaven's expression remained indifferent, not stopping his steps, looking down at Tai immortal monarch. He could see through the cause and effect of the celestial spirit god and knew why he acted so. But Tai immortal monarch had no such reason. The celestial spirit great world had no matters directly involving Tai immortal monarch with cause and effect, and Tai immortal monarch had no fault in the celestial court, with no need to oppose it. Under the gaze of the Marshal of Heaven, Tai immortal monarch unexpectedly rose slowly. This scene caused an uproar among the immortal gods. The celestial spirit god was a minor role in their eyes, but Tai immortal monarch was different. His immortal monarch destiny made it impossible for the immortal gods to take him lightly. A dignified immortal monarch standing up for the beings of one world against the celestial court? What for? Seeing the Tai immortal monarch rise, the 72 immortals of Jindong all clenched their teeth and stood up. Their faces filled with determination when their bodies straightened. Their expressions were identical as they gazed at the Marshal of Heaven, causing him to frown. Immortal cultivation for peace. Yet you honored as immortal gods, conduct demonic acts, slaughtering all living beings, disrupting the great Taoist order. So be it, I shall awaken you on behalf of the heavenly Tao. A voice came from the depths of the universe, startling all immortal gods to turn their heads toward the direction of the celestial spirit great world. The Marshal of Heaven stopped his steps, turning his head to look. The two grand banners behind him paused, no longer fluttering. Sarthanelfer. Net website on Google to access chapters of novels early and in the highest quality. He lifted his right hand, and a divine weapon larger than his physical body appeared in his hand, resembling a heaven-piercing halberd, with the halberd blade taking up a third of the entire weapon. Upon its appearance, wisps of golden aura spilled out, forming golden dragons and fire phoenixes coiling around the halberd blade. Heavenly soldiers and generals, heed my order. First eliminate this demon. The Marshal of Heaven's voice rang out, causing the attention of all immortal gods to shift toward the direction of the celestial spirit great world. The celestial gods around the world gate led their respective celestial armies flying towards the celestial spirit great world, spreading out and each forming a heavenly array. The various sects and clans in the void retreated in fright, yet their hearts were filled with excitement. Could the voice just now belong to Ancestor Master Wusher? The higher the cultivation level, the greater the reverence for Ancestor Master Wusher, because they not only heard of but had also experienced battles where Ancestor Master Wusher turned the tides, and they truly believed that as long as Ancestor Master Wusher didn't flee, the celestial spirit great world would have a chance to continue existing. The living beings of heaven and earth also heard Gu An's words. And although Gu An's tone wasn't as forceful as the Marshal of Heaven, the casualness in his words instantly calmed their uneasy hearts. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know. Report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 872. Looking down on immortal gods in front of the world gate. Tai immortal monarch and the 72 immortals of the Golden Cave felt a sense of relief upon hearing Gu An's words, although a look of confusion crossed Tai immortal monarch's eyes. Why doesn't the Marshal of Heaven resolve them? Is it because he underestimates their combat power, is blindly arrogant, or is there another reason? Tai immortal monarch couldn't ponder much, for he saw a multicolored light quickly sweeping toward them from the depths of the cosmos, originating from the celestial spirit great world. It's here. Wusher the primordial ancestor. Tai immortal monarch felt a surge of excitement as he watched, believing he had made the right bet when Wusher the primordial ancestor addressed the Marshal of Heaven. Now he wanted to see how the arrogant Marshal of Heaven would react when faced with Wusher the primordial ancestor. All immortal gods looked toward the multicolored light, including the beings from the celestial spirit great world, who gazed with eyes full of anticipation and excitement, unlike the immortal gods. Wusher the primordial ancestor was making another move, and this time against the army of immortal gods. It was destined to be a battle that would shake ancient history. Ji Xiaoyu hovered in the air, her eyes full of curiosity, She did not doubt Guan's strength, but from the words of the Marshal of Heaven, it was clear that Guan was the primary target of these immortal gods. Once conflict broke out, grievances would become endless. The celestial court does not consist of just these immortal gods. Once the heavenly spirit Tao Alliance's first prodigy crown having you also watch the multicolored light. Since being defeated by Emperor Xian, he had devoted himself to cultivation, wishing to retrace the path of the undefeated. Yet facing these immortal gods, he still felt small and knew he was not their match. The appearance of Guan ignited excitement within him. He equally revered Wuxia the primordial ancestor, hoping Wuxia could maintain that invincible stance of myth and legend while also feeling grateful for Wuxi's protection of the celestial spirit great world. The universe was silent, whether immortal gods or beings, all intensely focused on that quickly extending multicolored light. The multicolored light headed toward the heavenly ascension stairs, at whose end they saw a figure clad in black, with a treasure sword at his waist, pacing forward. This figure was far from the grandeur of the immortal gods, appearing more like a mere mortal. He seemed to stroll leisurely, and while his aura was not strong, everyone, both immortals and beings, felt an indescribable sense of unease. His aura is unexpectedly weak, a star monarch standing on the heavenly ascension stairs remarked, frowning deeply. He did not need to personally join the battle, but gazing from afar, the tiny figure inexplicably filled him with unease. His most outstanding ability was perception. An instinct told him that this person was unlike any enemy they had encountered before, even those ancient great powers of the Nine Extremes great world. In the human world, before the heavenly suppressing heroic peak, Son of Heaven Jie and Bai Gu continued to meditate at the foot of the mountain, with a man in a white robe standing before them. They were gazing up at the celestial vault, observing the impending earth-shattering battle in outer heaven. The white-robed man's face was filled with curiosity. Stroking his chin with one hand, he pondered. Is this Wuxia the primordial ancestor? This great thousand world certainly couldn't nurture such an entity. Son of Heaven Jie, once suppressed by Wuxia the primordial ancestor, knew well the terrifying power of Wuxia. Since the immortal gods began sweeping across the 3,000 great worlds, the news spread like wildfire. He heard it as well and thought things weren't so simple. Seeing the Marshal of Heaven personally lead the immortal army made him feel heavy-hearted. Even he could not clearly articulate his emotions. He found himself worried for Wuxia the primordial ancestor. Beside him, Bai Gu curiously asked, is he going to face all those immortal gods alone? Son of Heaven Jie did not answer, but a smile of excitement appeared on the white-robed man's face, lost in thought. Meanwhile, one after another, celestial armies had already formed battle formations, charging toward the multicolored light. They would not allow mortals to approach the heavenly ascension stairs. Terrifying auras erupted from within them. The leading celestial army converged their destiny into a war god Dharma image larger than the stars, formed by the united destiny of 100,000 heavenly soldiers, soaring with murderous intent. This war god Dharma image raised a gigantic axe, striking angrily toward Guan, who was walking on the multicolored light. The axe strike drew all eyes, illuminating every realm in the universe. As the axe cleaved down, Tao spiritual qi surged within the cosmos, and axe qi, imbued with terrifying heavenly Tao divine power, tore the void, slicing across. The hearts of all beings stopped. Their wide eyes and dilated pupils could not grasp this attack. However, as swiftly as the axe qi advanced, it vanished. Those with profound cultivation saw that the axe qi dispersed abruptly as it neared Wuxia the primordial ancestor. This scene caused immortal gods and countless heavenly soldiers to frown. Se the novel F.I.R. Net website on Google to access chapters of novels early and in the highest quality. Guan continued to advance, not quickening his pace, just like the Marshal of Heaven who had descended the heavenly ascension stairs earlier. Now, with roles reversed, Guan intended for the immortal gods to experience fear and struggle. Seeing the attack by the war god Dharma image achieve nothing, those celestial gods hurriedly commanded, and one war god Dharma image after another emerged above each celestial army. Though their forms varied, they all exuded an imposing aura of invincibility, gazing disdainfully over all living beings. More than 1,000 war god Dharma images wielded their divine weapons, suddenly unleashing various divine skills, attacking Guan from all directions on the multicolored light, illuminating the entire universe. The terrifying impact stirred the Tao spiritual qi, forming a gale that rushed towards Ji Xiaoyu, blowing her hair. She squinted her eyes, staring intently in the direction of Guan. Even though she could no longer see his figure, she was not worried about Guan inside the Taoist field of the beginningless. A light screen appeared within the towering 10,000 Realms gate, reflecting a multicolored glow. Seeing the ancestor master overwhelmed by the immortal god's army's divine skills, all the living beings on the 9-spirit continent tensed up, as did the Wushiji disciples. Only the second-generation disciples, and Zizai were filled with anticipation, confident in Guan. When the strong light dissipated, Guan's figure appeared, unaffected, as if the previous onslaught of divine skills was mere illusion. Guan, moving forward, raised his right hand and gripped the sword hilt at his waist. The beings from the celestial spirit great world, seeing he was unharmed, were all invigorated, some even gasping in low exclamations. Ancestor Master Wuxia is so strong. The attack of the immortal gods couldn't harm him at all. Meanwhile, upon seeing Guan grasp his sword, the immortal gods, whose ranks exceeded those of the celestial gods, couldn't remain seated. They vaulted up, wielding their magical treasures, some waving banners, others throwing treasure towers, some playing zither. The cosmic space stirred, and the beings watching from the void felt as if they were suddenly in a dim and eerie void, with dark red clouds billowing in the distance, like a chaotic demon god approaching. Celestial gods, surpassing the heaven-balancing golden immortal, appeared above Guan, their divine weapons gathering immense heavenly might, as if all were wielding the heavenly constitution, ready to slay demons. Their forms were colossal, like giant mountains surrounding an ant. Suddenly, Guan drew his sword with extreme speed, unseen by any immortal or mortal eye. The sword light flashed, instantly turning dozens of celestial gods above into flying ash. Guan then took a step forward, his form flickered, traversing millions of miles, his pace unchanged, yet each step swiftly relocating. Even in the vast cosmic void, his relocation speed was overwhelmingly forceful. Seeing dozens of powerful celestial gods annihilated in an instant, the immortal gods couldn't hold back, regardless of their immortal position. They all charged towards Guan. Endless immortal gods rushed towards Guan, a magnificent sight, each immortal god shining with heavenly Dao's strong light. This scene shocked the powerful from various sects and clans from the celestial spirit great world. Ancestor Master Wuxia didn't use any grand, majestic divine skills, but his advancing posture was so powerful that they finally understood what invincibility meant. With each step and flicker, Guan swung his sword again, the sword light flashed, and his figure suddenly disappeared. All the immortal gods charging at him paused, frozen as if about to unleash their divine skills or spells, some with twisted faces, some with frowned brows, others with excited expressions. Time and space seemed to have halted. The spectators couldn't help but widen their eyes, thinking they might be under some illusion if not for the perception that they could move. Seeing those imposing immortal gods all stop, all living beings held their breath, not daring to breathe audibly. Standing on the heavenly ascension stairs, the Marshal of Heaven seemed to sense something, instinctively turned and looked up, his pupils suddenly constricted. He saw, high on the golden mountain at the top of the heavenly ascension stairs, Guan was looking down at him, his sword already sheathed, one hand pressing the hilt. For the Marshal of Heaven's mighty body, looking up, Guan seemed to stand right above his head, very close. Yet so near, it gave the Marshal of Heaven an unattainable sense of awe. What's going on? His momentum clearly. The Marshal of Heaven could no longer maintain his composure. Earlier, when Guan swung his sword, he felt danger. When Guan appeared above him, he felt as if he was being trampled, his mana coagulating. At this moment, the countless immortal gods and heavenly soldiers rushing towards the multicolored glow suddenly exploded with sword light. Their immortal bodies seemed to crack, and as the sword light erupted from within, they quickly turned into light stars and scattered. In less than 3 breaths, the shivering immortal god army was entirely annihilated, leaving only the Marshal of Heaven alive on the heavenly ascension stairs. Below the heavenly ascension stairs, Tai Immortal Monarch, Celestial Spirit God, and the 72 immortals of Jin Dong were all invigorated by the scene. Even the calmest Celestial Spirit God showed a gleeful expression. Then they seemed to sense something, all looking up, and upon seeing Guan towering above, their blood boiled with excitement. Witnessing the disappearance of the immortal god army, the spectators from the Celestial Spirit Great World instinctively looked towards the heavenly ascension stairs, for the Marshal of Heaven was the strongest, and they wanted to see his reaction. Consequently, they saw the Marshal of Heaven standing on the heavenly ascension stairs, half-turned, gazing upward, and following his gaze, they captured Ancestor Master Wushi's figure. Ancestor Master Wushi's figure was so minuscule, even standing on a layer of the heavenly ascension stairs' golden mountain, appearing negligible. Without their high cultivation level, they might have overlooked Ancestor Master Wushi's figure. Yet, as their gaze locked on Ancestor Master Wusher, their eyes couldn't move away. A kind of indescribable fervor surged in their hearts. Such a posture, overlooking the immortal gods, made their hearts yearn. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know. Report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 873. The immortal gods are defeated. The Marshal of Heaven could no longer be concerned with the gazes of the beings from the Celestial Spirit Great World. In his eyes, only Guan remained. At this moment, not only was his mana frozen, but even his divine sense and senses were restricted. Guan appeared ever more gigantic in his eyes. He even had the feeling that he might be obliterated at any moment. It seems your heart is struggling as well. Even knowing this is wrong, you cannot resist the momentum, and this causes you pain, doesn't it? Guan looked down at the Marshal of Heaven, and said indifferently. He had observed the Marshal of Heaven. Most of the time, when the Marshal invaded the Great Thousand World, he would directly order a massacre. If he encountered a Great Thousand World with deep foundations, he would wait first, force out the strongest, and only after subduing them would he issue the cleansing command. Before eliminating the strongest, he did not allow the immortal gods to act rashly. Just like now, even though the Tai Immortal Monarch, the Celestial Spirit God, and the 72 immortals of Jin Dong had all already stood up and slapped him in the face, yet he still placed them aside, wanting to first force out Guan. This head of the heavenly gods seemed bewildered by his own actions. But even if he was bewildered inside, those deeds were already done, and Guan would not show mercy. Hearing Guan's words, the Marshal of Heaven felt the oppressive force around him slightly ease. He gritted his teeth and said, "Do you know what it means to defy the celestial court? Today, you've exterminated so many immortal gods. Even if they can be resurrected, your feud with the celestial court will be irreconcilable." His words echoed throughout the universe, causing the observers from the Celestial Spirit Great World to feel uneasy once more. Indeed, how mighty is the celestial court, ruling over the 3,000 great worlds. No one knows just how many immortal gods the celestial court has, but myths throughout the ages tell them the celestial court is unassailable. They couldn't help but look nervously towards Guan, awaiting his decision. Would Ancestor Master Wusher compromise before the might of the celestial court, or continue to protect them? They could only empathize with Ancestor Master Wushi's grace by putting themselves in his shoes. With Ancestor Master Wushi's capabilities, escaping unscathed wouldn't be difficult at all. If it were them, how many would stay? The Tai Immortal Monarch, Celestial Spirit God, and the 72 immortals of Jin Dong also wanted to know what Ancestor Master Wusher intended, why he would shelter this great thousand world and dare to stand against the celestial court. They believed that any choice Ancestor Master Wusher made was the result of deep consideration. Staring down at the Marshal of Heaven, Guan's expression remained unchanged, but the Marshal could not discern his true emotions. Under the Marshal's gaze, Guan raised his right hand and extended it towards him, revealing 5 figures in his palm. The Marshal's face drastically changed upon seeing these 5 figures. These 5 figures were all great powers of the celestial court, highly ranked, and were the 5 Dao Extreme Daoyuo immortals who secretly assisted him. Sar the Nelfer. Net website on Google to access chapters of novels early and in the highest quality. Impossible. When The marshal widened his eyes, his whole body trembling, unable to maintain his composure as fear and unease engulfed his heart. He couldn't understand how Guan did it. He had never seen anyone who could directly subdue 5 Dao Extreme Daluo immortals. And he could see those 5 Dao Extreme Daluo immortals were equally frightened. Could it be that these 5 elders were only just subdued? As soon as this thought arose, the marshal felt even more horrified. At this moment, he had forgotten right and wrong, forgotten his duties as an immortal. He was more anxious about someone like Guan residing here, perhaps harboring a grand conspiracy against the celestial court. As a heavenly court immortal god, his greatest concern was naturally the foundation of the celestial court's Taoist lineage. Within Guan's palm, the 5 Dao Extreme Daluo immortals looked up at him, their expressions extremely unsightly. Their attire and bearing were extraordinarily outstanding. One glance and it seemed they were beings of high status within the celestial court, each clad in armor and crowns, or in phoenix robes, radiating their respective heavenly Dao lights. One noble female immortal, resembling the mother of all things, asked, "What kind of divine being are you? And why do you interfere in the internal affairs of the celestial court?" The other 4 Dao Extreme Daluo immortals were equally tense and confused. They had been secretly observing the battle, even marveling at Guan's power. Yet in a blink of an eye, they were captured by Guan. They couldn't even react, let alone break free. They felt their celestial court's destiny being frozen, making it impossible to remain composed. Immortal gods facing an absolute crisis might even long for destruction rather than fear being spared by their enemy. And Guan's ability to confine their destiny led them to even more profound and terrifying speculation. Internal affairs? Wantonly slaughtering all living beings. Is it that you do not allow them to resist? Guan's voice echoed as numerous immortal gods emerged within the golden light above the heavenly ascension stairs, all rushing towards him to attack. These were the immortal god army he had previously eradicated. These immortal gods did not notice the 5 Dao Extreme Daluo immortals in Guan's hand. Seeing the marshal of heaven still there, they didn't think much about it, and rushed headlong at Guan, vowing to regain their honor. At that moment, Guan moved his right foot to the side, and a terrifying, domineering pressure exploded, instantly shattering the scattered immortal gods throughout the universe, leaving all living beings with a momentary heart palpitation. The reason it was only momentary was because Guan withdrew the pressure just as quickly. Having heard Guan's words and witnessed the display of pressure a moment ago, the 5 Dao Extreme Daluo immortals were struck with fear and unable to retort. Likewise, the Marshal of Heaven was frightened, staring blankly at Guan, devoid of any demeanor befitting the head of the heavenly gods. The celestial spirit great world is not a place where you can create chaos. Henceforth, besides normal exchanges, if any celestial court immortal gods dare to make trouble again, I will crush your destiny along with it. Guan looked down at the marshal indifferently and then, under the marshal's gaze, he directly crushed the 5 Dao Extreme Daluo immortals in his hand. Those at the pinnacle of the immortal Dao, within his grasp, had no means of resistance, utterly annihilated in form and spirit. The marshal could feel the destinies of those 5 elders dissipating, confirming that he had not been caught in some illusion divine power. Before he could think further, Guan, standing above, rotated his right hand downwards, opening his palm and pressed down. Boom! The Marshal of Heaven exploded directly, transforming into surging golden aura that spread into the universe, causing the robes and hair of the celestial spirit god and other immortal gods below to flutter in the wind. They looked up at Guan with fervent admiration, their emotions incredibly stirred. They had indeed witnessed the existence of those 5 Dao Extreme Daluo immortals, especially the Tai immortal monarch, who had seen one of those Dao Extreme Daluo immortals before. Of course, he wasn't aware of that immortal's cultivation level, only knowing that within the celestial court, they were a mythic figure rarely encountered. He had managed to see them thanks to a recommendation by his master for a discourse. Such unattainable figures were crushed with a single hand by the ancestor. It was truly unbelievable. Guan glanced at the Tai immortal monarch and the 72 immortals of Jin Dong, nodding slightly, which made the immortal gods and immortals even more excited, feeling assured of their choice. Then Guan disappeared from the heavenly ascension stairs, as if he had never been there. The universe fell silent, and the watchers from the celestial spirit great world gazed at the golden starlight left by the marshal's form, filled with unparalleled shock. Soon they regained their clarity. The immortal gods were defeated. An emotion akin to a flash flood burst forth in the universe's void, throwing it into an uproar. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know. Report so we can fix it as soon as possible.